Welcome, everybody, to the Making Awesome podcast. This is episode 191. Happy Father's Day to the past, present, and future fathers out there. We have the Daddy Wazzy, aka Chris, here with us. We're going to be chatting all about what it's like to be a dad and, well, the daddy here on YouTube. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. How about you guys out there? And you, Grant, you guys, hope everybody has a good Father's Day if you're a father. And, happy to be here.
If you are a new or expecting dad here, this is going to have some sage dad advice. So get ready. I always like Father's Day. Oh, well, certainly the maybe don't do these, maybe don't do this level of advice, right?
There's some of that, yes.
See, we learn best from our own mistakes, but sometimes we can learn from other people's mistakes. Now, Chris, do you know what my next question is going to be?
I do not.
I'm going to need the Backstreet Boys from you. The who you are, the where you from, the what you did, and as long as you love me.
Okay. My name's Chris. I'm a father of 3 children. I've also got 3 grandchildren. And I started early in life. My first child was born when I was 21. So I started in the maker community very early in life. And then I became a 3D printer, in my 40s. I actually early 50s, I started doing 3D printing. I really wish this hobby was around when I was a young man because it's so much fun to have this around kids. It's amazing. I get to enjoy it with my grandkids, but just the interaction I see with parents and their kids with 3D printing is pretty amazing.
I absolutely agree. I would have loved to have this when I was a kid, but yeah, we were at an event this past weekend and just watching, these young kids just light up, right? When I'm like, so you want to make something? They're like, what? I'm like, I have a laser here that you can use to burn metal. Would you like to burn metal with a laser? And the dads are always like, look, if they don't want to do it, I want to do it. So
exactly. I can see that. I want to burn some metal.
Now, where do you
go
hail
ahead.
out of?
Originally, I was born in Connecticut. My dad was a 20-year Navy man, so we moved around a lot. I also joined the Navy when I was out of high school, so kind of kept the tradition alive. My brother and myself both joined the Navy and he did 6 years, I did 8 years. So yeah, I lived in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Scotland, Pennsylvania, back to New Jersey. The formidable years were New Jersey. That's the teenage years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dad retired by then, and so I grew up in New Jersey. Is pretty much what I tell most people.
That's fair. And then profession. What have you been doing for your life?
I went in the Navy, and I went in the Navy as a nuclear power engineer.
Oh,
they got me into that program. When
that's cool.
When I was in high school, here, take all these tests, and I took the test. I did really well apparently, and they were like, here, sign all this stuff, because the recruiters get a bonus whenever they sign up a new person, right? So, and we get a bonus, but we don't get the bonus until we complete the program. And 3/4 of the way into that program, I decided this is not what I want to do. So I kind of failed out properly. And I say properly because there's 2 ways to fail out. You fail out the improper way. They strip you of your rating. A rating in the Navy is your job. Like electronics technician or machinist mate or something like that. So they strip you of your rating and they throw you out to the fleet to paint the boats, be a boatswain's mate. And I didn't want to do that. So I did it the proper way. Well, I went to academic review boards and kind of didn't do so well during these reviews. And they were like, well, we have a lot of money invested in your schooling. We don't want to just throw you out to the fleet to paint the boats. We're going to keep you as electronics technician and send you back to the electronics technician school for the part you didn't do as a nuke. So they did that, and then I became a crypto tech after that, working on the equipment that, took the messages and encrypted them.
Yeah, not Bitcoin, receivers. People. This is
not
cryptography.
Bitcoin. No. Yes.
Not the blockchain. This is cryptography.
So
this is the cool crypto.
Yeah, I was electronics technician that worked on the crypto equipment.
Does that make you a crypto bro?
Not really. No, not at all. Also worked on radars and very low frequency transmitters and stuff like that too. Uh, yeah, I did 8 years in the Navy. I was stationed in Hawaii on a ship in Pearl Harbor, and I got shore duty after that in Australia. So I had a really hard time in the Navy.
I
But
got a buddy
it
of
was
mine who works for FEMA who was stationed in Hawaii for quite a few years, and he would join the Friday night maker call, walking along the white sandy beaches and showing us, oh, there's a sea turtle. I'm like, this is all right. You know what? Some people get lucky with their deployments. I guess others
yeah.
don't, right?
Well, I actually asked for Australia when I left. It was either extend on the ship for 6 months or extend for 18 months to get shore duty somewhere. And I was like, let's put this in. And the recruiter on board the ship laughed at me. He goes, "You're asking for shore duty in Australia?" He goes, "Nobody gets that." I'm like, "Put it in, see what happens." 3 days later, he goes, "Come to my office." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Just come to my office." I'm like, "What's going on?" He goes, "Who do you know at the Pentagon?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You got exactly what you wanted." He goes, "I'm blown away." He goes, "They didn't even like ask questions. They just like, oh, this guy wants that, give it to him." I said, "Oh yeah, I did a spy ship thing a couple of years ago, where I was on a civilian ship dressed in civilian clothes and we were listening for submarines. And I did that for 6 months and I got a commendation from the commander in chief of the Pacific Fleet. So yeah, they kind of know me at the Pentagon." And he was like, "Oh." And he was like, "Well, that's probably why you got what you asked for." I'm like, "Great." So, never always ask for something because you never know the answer. It could be no, it could be yes. But if you don't ask, the answer is no. So that's kind of how I raise my kids, by the way. Always ask for what you think you deserve. And if you think you deserve a raise at your job, don't expect them to just give it to you. Ask for it and prove to them that you deserve it. And my sons have both done that, and they were like, "Yeah, that works." I'm like, "Yeah, it does."
So Pestilence was saying Daddy Wazzy the spy. You literally did spy work. That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I didn't
I
know
got to grow a
this.
beard because when you're in the Navy, you don't get to grow a beard.
Mhm.
But we're on a literally a 70-foot little fishing boat with two, trailers on the back and a bunch of antennas. It's like tons of antennas, 35-foot whip antennas, egg beaters for satellite. I mean, we had little dishes, and it was like, yeah, we're fishing, sure.
Fishing
What
for
are you towing
submarines.
yeah, fishing for submarines, exactly. So, but we had to, act like we weren't in the Navy. So my hair
Yeah.
was a little longer. I got to grow a beard. We were at sea for 45 days at a time, though, too.
Wow.
Listening for submarines, and then we come back into port for 5 days, get all of our provisions, and then go back out for 45 more days. So
Mhm.
it wasn't an easy thing to do, but it
No, no,
wasn't
no. It's
super
not a
hard
walk in the
either.
park. Yeah.
It wasn't super hard either until the ocean got angry. Then it became like you're on a small boat and it's sea state 6 or 7, and you're feeling it every little bit. And we had the chef one day, everything just went flying out of the galley. I mean, we all had to go down there and help him clean it up. It was so bad.
For those of us that don't know what sea stage 6 or sea state 6 or 7 means, what can you break that down into those of us who don't
Yeah, sea state
go in the water?
7 is like when you look out and you're in the middle of the ocean and
Mm.
all you see is white caps everywhere.
Mm.
Okay. It's an angry ocean. Really bad. Swells of, 15 to 20 feet. The wind's howling. And if you're seeing white caps in the middle of the ocean, that's bad. Okay, that's a lot of surf that shouldn't be there. So we actually on that spy ship, we actually had a guy break his leg, and we're in the middle of the ocean. So we had to have another boat come out and get him.
I don't know if that was
Okay.
a helicopter rescue, but okay, yeah, boat rescue works too.
It was a boat rescue, yeah. So it was very weird and crazy and scary at the same time because the ocean was angry that day that boat came to get him. So we're holding him over the side of the ship as this other boat's kind of next to us, making sure we're not too close to where we're slamming
Oh
together,
no,
right?
yeah, that would hurt if you already got a broken leg.
So right, so we're kind of have him dangled in this harness, right?
Yeah.
With this boom attached to our boat. And he's literally white with fear. Okay, because he's just like, my life's going to end right here. Because
Mhm.
I got a broken leg, which is bad enough, but now I got to deal with this. So, we're trying to get them on, and the next thing you know, the boats do this. Okay, we go from 2 feet apart height wise to 15 feet apart
Yeah,
as we're lowering him down. Okay,
that's not great.
no, and the look on his, I'll never forget the look on this guy's face. It was sheer fear and panic.
Yeah, it's a bit of an oh shit moment to say the least.
Oh yeah, and all of us were just like, oh shit, for real. Okay, and so what do? We kind of bring them back up a bit, so he's not slamming into the side of our boat because he's down low. And then the next thing you know, their boat comes back up, and at that point, we're like, get him on there. So we all just kind of like, I mean, they're because they got their ropes too, and then they're pulling him in, and they get him in, and we're like, all right, let's get out of here. All the boats separate because you don't want them slamming in together.
Yeah,
I mean,
that'd be bad.
That was probably the craziest thing I ever witnessed at sea, and that wasn't even on a Navy ship.
That's crazy. Oddly, you are not the only sub hunter that I apparently now know. Da Vinci 10 in the chat says I was a sub hunter in the mid 80s on a P3 Orion. So
Nice.
there's many of you that also somehow ended up being makers.
Yeah, I'm not looking at chat. Sorry, everybody. So
No,
if you're saying
got
hello,
it. Don't worry.
say I want to say hello to everybody who has said hello to me. I'm not.
Well, here,
I actually did that on purpose. I didn't want to be distracted by it, but
I got it. Let's call them out. We got Max H is in here, Mad Cat USA, Pezlas, of course, Duff is here, Royal Nomi, who's probably sporting a dope hat. David Connor Shover's here, Nick, Da Vinci 10, of course. Who else we got? Karen Chow Designs is here. Jose is here. Let's see. Dark Third Dimension. Amber's here. Mike from Never Let the Machines Win. Nicor. Printed Visions 3D. Who else we got? Christian Bureau is here as well. So thank you all for
hello,
joining.
everybody. Thank you for joining. Appreciate you hanging out with us.
Like, subscribe,
a little bit
all
of
the
Father's
things.
Day.
Yeah, those of us that didn't want to spend an obtuse amount of money to go to San Francisco, welcome to the chat.
Yes. Open sauce. Yes. You got to have a very open wallet for that.
Whew, yeah. No kidding. It was one of those things I really wanted to go. We bought tickets the day they went on pre-sale from last year, right? So we've had tickets for almost an entire year. And I started, when we were ready, we normally prep for trips 3 to 6 months in advance. I just ran the numbers. I'm like, I can go to Smurf for like $500 more. Do I want to go to San Francisco or do I want to go to the UK? Honestly, it's a very, very easy choice. Sorry, San Francisco. While it would have been fun, we have committed to raising $10,000 to Sanjay Mortimer Foundation this year, and so I got work to do. So it's gonna be fun.
I used to live near San Francisco, so yeah, I know that area very well. I was stationed in Vallejo, California, which is just outside the Bay Area.
Well, one of our team members, Mad Cat, went down yesterday to Open Sauce, so he got to not only meet a bunch of makers and creators, but he got to see some of the ridiculous things that are there, right? There's both amazing and cursed things at Open Sauce. So if you are in that general area, go check it out. I think William Osmond put out some $100 a day tickets. So $100 to go see a bunch of that stuff might be decent if you don't also have to buy hotels, flights.
Yeah, if you're local to the area, definitely, check it out.
Oh yeah,
if you could afford it, the $100 for the one day. If I lived in the area, I would definitely do that. I'd probably pick up a 2-day pass if I was local, actually.
Yeah, I'm a little less than local. We're out of Tampa, Florida, so bit of a hike to get over there, to say the least. And parking is $20. Be aware. Well, that could be worse. Honestly,
I was stationed in Orlando for nuclear power school, so
really?
I know Tampa quite well. And whenever the Florida Bureau of Tourism calls me, they ask me, "What's your favorite location in Florida?" I always say Plant City.
Why?
Because they're like,
is that specifically where you were in Plant City?
I just always say that because it's the most bizarre answer they're ever going to get.
Oh. Okay, I was going to say, there's not much in Plant City.
Right, there's nothing there.
I'm maybe a half hour north of Plant City. So, up in Pasco County.
Okay.
People are like, oh, he's doxing stuff. My address is public. Welcome to Florida. Everything here is public. But yes, Plant City is very weird. And yes, it has actually got a bunch of plantations in it. It's where a lot of the strawberries come from Florida.
Hmm.
And yes, as Liz said, there is a strawberry festival. That's correct. Every year, Plant City has a strawberry festival. See, where I'm at, we have an armadillo festival and a rattlesnake festival and a kumquat festival because it's Florida and we're weird. Uh,
I would have never thought Armadillo Festival for Florida. I would have thought Texas for that for sure.
no, I mean they're not as big as Texas. 'Cause everything's bigger in Texas. We know
Hmm.
this. But yeah, we have. I don't think they're doing the rattlesnake festival this year. They didn't do one last year. I think they're trying to do them a little bit, you know, less frequent because why? Why have a rattlesnake festival? It's
Again,
weird.
I would have thought Arizona for that, not
Yeah.
Florida.
Yep.
But I know there's a lot of snakes in Florida too.
Tech Jeeper says Plant City sounds like a knockoff farming simulator for Android.
It kind of does. It kind of does.
Yeah, like Sim City, but it's Plant City. Yeah, that's fair. Love that. Yeah. So traditionally we have my dad on, and this year he was a little bit busy, so we brought in our own resident dad, who I actually recently just met you in person for the first time at
Yeah,
Rocky
at
Mountain
Rocky Mountain.
Redwood.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure meeting you in
it
person.
was. Yeah, and so when we'd asked Chris for, 'cause normally when we have a guest on, we ask for some sort of photo of you and a bit of a bio. He sends us photos like, oh yeah, it's like 8 years old, and I go to Liz, like, Liz, I know you have newer photos than this. Help me out. And within like 20 minutes, Liz is like, here's a photo with you and Daddy Wazzy, and their Positron 3D might have been in the middle,
Perfect.
so we might have had a breakup. Positron pushed him out of the way and then stuck us together, but it worked. It worked
It's
out
funny.
quite well.
My daughter got married in October, and I pinged her. I said, "Hey, send me a picture that with me, you, and your brothers." And she's like, she sends me a bunch of pictures of me and her, me and my sons individually, me and my sons together. But there was not one taken with all three of them with me. And I'm like, she's like, I can't believe we didn't do that. I'm like, well, it was your wedding. That was the focus. The focus wasn't get a picture with dad. She goes, yeah, that's true. She goes, but we should have done it.
I think the last like family photo that we have is from like, it was before my back was injured, so it was like 2019, and before the world imploded for a couple of years that we all tend to forget about because apparently 2020 is almost 4.5 years ago, and
Hmm.
that only mildly hurts my soul and my back. But yeah, that's it's always a weird one, isn't it? To just like, wow, that was yesterday. I don't believe
Oh,
it.
it gets worse as you get older. The time thing gets quicker. It's like a week ago is now a year ago.
See, then that means we must accelerate closer to the speed of light as we get older so that we can have time dilation occurring. So time doesn't go faster, it goes slower. Ha! We can beat aging by just going really, really fast. Sonic the
Okay,
Hedgehog might have something that
he
he's
might.
figured out. I mean, that's
Well,
that's pretty
I guess
good.
the Flash would call it the Speed Force.
Oh, that's fair. Ooh, Sonic the Hedgehog or Flash? Hmm. I might go with
I
Sonic.
just became a super nerd mentioning that, I guess.
Yeah, I always go to Sonic because that's where the "gotta go fast" meme comes from. But the Flash is not normally one that I think about. Oh, that one's rough.
But they covered all that, I think, in the TV show with the whole Speed Force and time travel and all that.
Did they
They kind of
really?
lost me there. I kind of went like, yeah, okay, and started watching something else.
Eh. Says the guy that went into the military to be a nuclear engineer, kind of, sorta.
Kind of, sort of, it was like,
I
and the
got
reason I
lost in
got
this
out,
whole Einstein
the reason I got out
relativity
of it is
thing.
because a friend of mine who was actually in the program like 6 months ahead of me, he was already in the fleet working as a nuclear power person, and I'm over here in Idaho Falls working at a nuclear power plant trying to get qualified to go to the fleet to do his job. And we hooked up at Christmas, and he's like, "You're gonna hate this job." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You're gonna hate this job." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You're dealing with a nuclear power plant, so when you hit port, you're the last person to actually get liberty because you're dealing with a nuclear power plant." And by the way, you're the first person to come back on board because you're dealing with a nuclear power plant. And I'm like, so what's the actual job like? He goes, oh, that's boring as hell. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you're just watching dials.
Yeah, that people say that nuclear power is very dangerous, and yet it is the safest form of
It's
technology that we
right.
have to produce
It's a very
energy.
safe form of technology to produce the power it produces, right?
Yeah.
but we
Obviously,
don't have a
solar
way
is a
to.
little bit safer,
Right. We
but
don't have a way to break down the waste. We're storing it. So, that there is that. But anyway, so he tells me all about like the job. He goes, yeah, you're watching dials, and then every half an hour you walk a route and you check another dials. And I'm like, that's the job? He goes, yeah, but if something goes wrong, that's when you got to remember everything you've learned and act quickly. I'm like, okay. So my whole job is just in case shit happens. He goes, yeah, pretty much. I'm like, I don't want to do this job. Because I said, I want to actually fix stuff that's broken. He goes, yeah, it doesn't break that often. That's the thing. I'm like, no, we don't want it to break. He
yeah,
goes, no, we don't
yeah,
want
you
it to
need
break.
it to not break.
Right. That's the whole thing. We are there to make sure it does not break.
Yep.
I said, yeah, I like to work more with my hands, and I want to be more tactile. I want to touch stuff and fix it and troubleshoot. He goes, yeah, we're not troubleshooting. We're just looking at dials, and if the dial goes crazy, then we act upon why does that dial go crazy. We activate a secondary system to prevent something from happening, whatever. I said, all right, I don't want to do this job. So that's when I went back to Idaho Falls and started missing out on my qualifications, because when you're in the Navy or military, you have qualifications you have to meet every certain, months or so. And I started falling behind on those. So they sent me to the review board, and I answered all the questions incorrectly on purpose. And they one of the guys actually pulled me off to the side after the review board. He goes, I know you're doing this on purpose, but I can't prove it. He goes, but you almost came real close to proving it for us by answering those questions the way you did. He goes, even the basic stuff you answered wrong, stuff you should know by now. I'm like, I just smiled at him. I didn't say a word.
Smart move.
And then they failed me out, and I went back to be electronics technician. So I still got the spy gig later, so kind of worked out.
I mean, sounds like you had your, you had that breakthrough. The person saying, "Hey, about this, maybe not, but you know, if you play your cards right, you might be able to get something that's more fun." So,
Yep.
and so you had your first kid at 21. How did
Yes.
that change everything for you?
Well, the military doesn't issue. There's a few things they don't issue you. One is a car. One is a girlfriend or a wife. The second is a pair of brown shoes. Those are the three things that they kind of like, because you're always wearing black shoes. Uh, so they don't really like you. They don't care unless it's your wife. Then they have to care because now you're dependent
Right.
of you. So, we got married in Australia actually. So getting the shore duty, because she was in Australia. She left Hawaii and went to Australia with my son. We weren't married, and I'm like, well, that's why I asked for shore duty there, because I'm like, well, she's there. I got to follow her, or either I'm going to extend for 6 months, get out, and go to Australia as a civilian, and it would be really tough for me to get a job as a dependent in Australia. Like there's not many options to work, so I said, well, let's just stay in the Navy and then see if I can get shore duty there. So got married in Australia. My son was born in Hawaii. So for the longest time, the joke was, I'm Hawaiian. I'm like, no, you're not. You were just born in Hawaii. You're not Hawaiian. But he was born in Tripler Hospital, the big pink hospital on the hill in Honolulu.
I mean, but wait a minute here. Wait a minute. Because if you're born in Hawaii, that does make you.
That's what he says. That's what he says.
I'm here to substantiate this argument for him. I mean, he's not here to defend himself, so I feel like someone needs to defend him here. Because if you're born in America, you're an American.
Right.
I was born in Virginia, so at least I'm not a Floridian.
But that's a country thing, American, right? That's a country thing.
But
Hawaiian's an ethnicity.
But Hawaii is more, it's a state of mind, man.
It is that too. It is that too.
Everything's 3 times the price except the Costco hot dog, according to my brother.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He was just there last year for a wedding.
But yeah, so my son was born in Hawaii. My second son was born in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually was Australian and American.
Dual citizenship then.
Yes, until he opted not to keep it. Australia has pretty strict rules about that. You have to go back and live there once you hit 21, you can still keep it, but you have to go back and live in Australia for like 6 months every 3 or 4 years or something like that to keep your citizenship there.
Yeah, that can be a pain.
I actually was pushing him. I said, why don't you just join the Australian military instead of our military? And then he was like, I'm not joining any military. I'm like, okay, fine. But I'm like, that's a way to keep your citizenship pretty much forever.
Yeah.
I'm like, they don't go in harm's way. This, we easy compared to
It's
serving in our
Australia.
military.
They send
Right.
emus and kangaroos last I checked.
Right. I mean, they're not at odds with most of the world like the U.S. is. So
You
the
don't have a
likelihood
country
of
that
going
has
in
a
harm's way
great
is really low.
war. Okay.
So, but he was like, "Nah, I'm not doing that." And then out of the blue, he joins the army. I'm like, "Okay." And then he goes to Korea and goes to Iraq, and now he's got PTSD, and he's like dealing with that. So, but
So maybe he
that's
should
my
have
second
listened to
oldest.
Dad and go to
I'm
Australia.
like, yeah, maybe you should have done the Australian thing instead, right? But anyway, you live and learn.
Yeah, I feel like there's been a lot of moments in my life where my dad has given me advice, I've chosen not to listen to it, and I've paid the price. Every single time.
Oh, we all have stories like that. I mean, I can tell you at least 10 times, or my dad told me something when I was a young man, and I knew better. What are you talking about, old man? I know better than you. I'm 22. I know everything, you know.
Clearly. Yeah. Yeah.
Come on, we've all been there.
I got the scars to
Overconfident,
prove
young,
it. Yeah.
think you know everything, and then life goes, yeah, you don't know shit. Hold on, hold my beer. Life says, hold my beer.
And then, but as a dad, how do you deal with that? Because, like, you know that they're barreling right into problems. You've tried to tell them, is it just
They
grab
get
the
calls,
camera and
hey,
hope
Dad,
for the
what's
best?
going on? And they're telling me about what they're planning to do. And I'm just listening. Like my one of my sons, I'm not going to say which, calls me up out of the blue last year. Yeah, I got this car and I owe more than it's worth. And I'm like, okay, so, but yeah, I don't like it. So I'm going to go get another car. And so I'm listening to this going, this is a bad move.
That's not a good.
Right.
I'm 34 and I know that's a bad move.
Yeah. And I'm not going to say he's right around your age.
Okay.
So, and this is when interest rates were going right up too, right? So
Yep.
loans were like stupid, crazy interest. So he does this, and I'm just like, I said, I think that's probably a bad decision. I think you're better off just keeping the car you got, paying it off, and dealing with the difference later.
Yep.
Defer that difference as long as you can, and until maybe it looks a little better for you on paper, because maybe you're making more money or you got more money to play with, right? But defer it as long as you can, because it's not costing you anything to defer it. It's built into the loan, right?
Yep.
So he doesn't listen, and he gets this other car, and he tells me about it. Yeah, I got this, I'm like, and he tells me what he's paying, and I'm like, I say to myself, holy fucking shit, you just screwed yourself. You started over with a new loan at 6 years, and it's like an additional $12,000 to $15,000, over the life of the loan, and I'm just like, okay. And he's kind of happy about it, but I can tell he's not, just by his tone, right?
Yeah.
And he hangs up with me. I'm like, all right. I say to myself, I give that about a month before something goes wrong with that, right? Well, it didn't even take that long. 2 weeks later, no, like a week later, maybe 10 days, he calls me up. Oh my God, Dad, I so fucked this up. Oh, I can't believe I did that stupid fucking deal. Oh my God. Just in a panic. And I'm like, yep.
I told you.
What's going on? What? I didn't say I told you. I never tell my kids that.
Oh, well.
Never have I ever said I told you so to my kids. I know it may seem like a weird thing not to say, but that's, to me, I've had that happen to me. My dad and my mom said, and that burns, okay? And I don't want that burn. And that burned for a while. And I'm like, you didn't need to say that shit. I know I did wrong, okay? There's no need to rub it in with salt, so to speak. So I don't do that. So, he's like, I'm like, calm down. I said, how can we make this better? That's all. How can we make this better? He goes, well, I can return the car because Georgia got a law where you get 14 days to return any car, doesn't matter what, for any reason. I'm like, okay, cool. He goes, so it's a bad deal. I'm just going to return it. And then I said, so what do you need? He goes, I need $1,500 so I can buy a used car. I'm like, I got $1,500 for you. I said, let's do a loan, and we'll do an 18-month loan, $1,500. You pay me back $1,800. He goes, Okay, you want $100 a month? I said, no, I want $1,800 in 18 months. I don't want $100 a month. I don't want to be dealing with car payments. And I got to keep track of that shit. I said, my brain ain't dealing with that.
Yeah,
I
no.
want eighteen hundred
Cut me a
dollars in
check.
18.
Yeah.
Right. I want $1,800 in 18 months. So 18 months was a few months ago. And he goes, of course, he forgot about it because that's what kids do. And I said, hey, you got my money? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, that car you're driving. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Grab
yeah. Oh,
socket
shit. I
wrench
can't believe
about
I
that
forgot
money.
about that. I can't believe I forgot about that. I'm like, I believe you forgot about that because that's what kids do. And he goes, yeah, you're right. I said, he goes, yeah, I got the money. I'm like, cool. So he sends me $1,800 through Venmo. And then I immediately send him back $300. He goes, what are you doing? I'm like, you pay me back. That's your payment due return, you know. He goes, you're paying me back the interest. I'm like, yeah, I don't need it. You needed that car more than I needed the interest. He goes, ah, I see what you did there. I'm like, yeah.
That's a lesson learned right there. That's a
Mm-hmm.
lesson learned. It's important. That's important.
Well, he was on the hook for the money, right? For the interest.
Yeah.
All the way through the end of the loan. And he got it back.
Yeah,
But
he
he didn't
learned the
know that until
responsibility of it.
exactly.
Yeah, and that responsibility is often worth way more than $300, right? That
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, clearly it was worth a lot more to him prior. Also, buying a used car for $1,500?
Yeah.
What? 18
Yeah.
months ago, you can't buy a car for $1,500.
It was a friend of his. It was a friend of his who had this car, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll give you a deal," because you know he knew the situation.
A
So
deal? He better marry that friend. That is a damn good deal.
he's been friends with this guy since he was 12. So 20-year long friend. So yeah, friends like that you keep, right?
No kidding. Jeez. I'm looking for just like a vehicle that I can have as kind of a spare. I drive a 22-year-old Honda, and at some point in the next 3 to 4 years, its transmission will fail. There's nothing that I can do to stop it. It is a known thing that happens with these cars. I can replace the transmission, but then I got to go pull one from an old car, which is also going to have a limited lifespan.
Oh yeah,
So I'm like, I've been trying to find something that is reasonable. There is no reasonable used car on this market right now. Like, I need that old lady that is in her 80s that has a car that she's garage kept. She's driven to church on Sundays and to the grocery store once a week. It's from 2010, you know, and it's got 50,000. I need one of those finds, right?
Yeah,
Everyone
but
wants
even
the
those
barn
finds aren't a
find.
deal anymore because the people who inherit that, they know they've got a gem and they know they're going to get money for it. So
That's why I need it before she passes,
right.
right? I need her not to know. People want these barn find Mustangs and all. No, I want an affordable used car. Damn it.
Yeah, he got really lucky with that car. He still
Yeah.
drives it, so you know he put a little bit of money. I think he put another $1,000 into it. You know, I think he needed a water pump, stuff like that.
Easy.
Nothing major, but you know, I'm like, yeah, right now, if you can find a used car for a deal and put a little bit of money into it, keep it going. That's the way I did that for the longest time. I bought my first car in the Navy, you know, in 1986. It was a Mazda B2000 pickup truck.
Nice.
I remember
Yeah.
I paid $5,200 for this car
Okay.
off the lot, right? And I didn't even have a back bumper because that was an extra $500, so I didn't have it. And they were trying to sell me that bumper. I'm like, nope, I don't have the extra $500. And later on, I put a bumper on it, right? But that was like 2 years later. That was my newest. That was my only new car until I got married. And then I bought a minivan because I'm like, I got kids, I got to get this minivan thing going, you know. And
Yeah.
I needed a safe car for the wife. And I'm like, yeah, we got to buy something new because I can't trust anything I buy from anybody that's going to be safe for you and the kids.
That's fair. That is very fair. That's fair. I guess technically the car that I have was a new car, but my mom bought it new when I was 12. Uh, and any of you that own a 2002 Honda Accord, I beg of you, do not change the in-cabin air filter. I know it's been years since you did it. Don't do it. Please don't. It is so much work. It's 12 screws. It's not worth it. And your car is
That's the
22 years
in-cabin
old.
air filter. You got to take 12
Yes.
screws out. That should be like
Yes.
open up a flap or maybe 2 screws and then
And
pop it in and done.
like none of them are the same, and it requires moving a metal bar. That metal bar has a ground wire on it. That
Oh
ground
my
wire
goodness.
controls your power windows, your power locks, your power mirrors, and your alarm. Ask me how I learned.
Because you didn't hook it back up.
Well, because the car's 22 years old, it broke apart pulling everything out. It's fine. It's
Oh,
internal. You can't see it. Little JB Weld, no problem. Had to wait a day. No problem. Put everything back in. A piece of plastic drops out from underneath the dash. I'm like,
hmm.
okay. 2 days later, I re-injure my back, and I'm in rough shape with my back. My car dash has been in pieces for like 3 weeks because I don't have the body currently to
Oh,
fix it.
I remember I used to work on car stereos when I was a young guy. When I lived in Hawaii, that was my side gig. I would make money putting car
Killing
stereos in
me.
people's cars. So yeah, working in dashboards, that's back pain.
Like I literally I expected, oh yeah, it's gonna be a panel under it, pull that. No, it's 12 screws, and almost none of them are the same. This is a rant that I can go on for a long time because this is so frustrating to me that I have to go. I am never changing the in-cabin air filters in this car again. I don't care. Like it's just why? And there's two of them, by the way. There's not one. There's two.
One for passenger, one for driver.
No, there are two of them because there is a structural component of the car that runs across the air box. So the filter can't be full size. It has to be two smaller filters
Oh,
because you can't fit.
oh,
Ah, just
wow. They really didn't design that properly.
everything else in that car they designed great. But that
Yeah, I mean, that car is known to be a very good, reliable car.
it's the old VTEC. That motor's got
Yeah.
almost 183,000 miles on it.
My dad had an old VTEC from the early '90s, and he ran that thing for 20 years.
It's just 22 on this one. It needs new
Yeah,
paint. That's the
and
next
the
step.
only reason he got rid of it is because he needed something a little bigger, and he bought something a little bigger. He also had a Nissan Maxima that he bought in 1990 that he kept until 2010. He kept that car 30 years, and the reason he got rid of it is because the interior was just disintegrating because it
Yeah,
was so old.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm starting to
the
get
engine
some
was still
tears in the
running.
leather, and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah,
It's 22 years old.
and you're
That's
in
just
Florida, all
life.
the sun, is going to kill it too.
Yeah, thankfully that whatever plastic Honda made the dashboard of that Accord out of, that should be whatever we make all other plastics out of. I'm assuming it's got to be ASA. There's no way it would have survived this long if it wasn't ASA. But I do love that car, and I think that was something that my dad taught me, or not my parents both, but my dad was quite the handy guy. And he said, there are times in your life where you will have the opportunity to fix it yourself. And if you have the ability to do the research and learn it, and it appears to be within your skill set, do it. If it isn't, take it to a mechanic. Now, this was taught to me years before YouTube was what it is, right?
Right.
So instead of grabbing my service manual, which I have for my car, I went to YouTube because it's a 9-minute video. But it's a
Hmm.
9-minute video with quite a few cuts in it that I realized. And my God, it's a 9-minute video. We'll be done here in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Famous
yeah,
last words.
yeah. I've done that.
Is there ever one of those moments where you're like, wait, stop. This is a teachable moment. I don't need to solve the problem. I need to teach it. What was like that moment where you're like, this is teachable and I need to teach it?
Like for my kids,
Yeah.
um, I did a lot of things with my boys. Like they were both in Boy Scouts, so there was a lot of teaching going on there. This is before the thing that happened with the Scouts, you know. Um, and I was actually like the assistant den leader or
Hmm.
master or whatever. So I was always with them no matter what any event we did. So
Yeah.
that was never an issue, and it was nothing going on in our area anyway. But anyway, there was a lot of teachable moments there. Fishing, even how to like put a worm on a hook. You would think that's actually not something most people know how to do. And little boys, they don't know how to do that out of the gate. So, and some of them are like grossed out by it. Others are like Dexter, oh yeah, this is cool, right? And those are the ones you want to watch. The kids that are like into it, you're like, okay, those gotta keep an eye on that
Yeah,
kid.
let's make sure they're not sneaking out at night
Yeah,
because they're.
exactly. But there's a lot of teachable moments there. But I remember one time my son Joey, uh, my second, he was about 4.5, and I was going to work, getting him ready to go to daycare. And I'm a Navy guy, so I swear here or there. And my wife was in the Navy as well, so we swear. But we always taught the kids, it's not something you do. It's an adult word, and you become an adult. You can say it, all you want, but as a kid, you don't. And they respected that. But there was also situations where the word just can't come out sometimes because of the situation, right? One morning, Joey's eating his Frosted Flakes, and I'm like scrambling to get ready. Got to take him to daycare. I'm getting ready for work, and I'm like, okay, I got this, I got that. Joey, hurry up, get dressed. Come on, we got to go. I can't finish my cereal. Why can't you finish it? It's all fucked up. And I'm like, get dressed now. And I went upstairs to my bedroom. I started laughing.
Yeah, you had to keep a straight face right
I
there.
kept a straight face right there, but I went upstairs, started laughing, and I immediately, my wife was already at work, and I call her up at work. She's like, "What's going on? You never call me at work." I'm like, "I got to tell you this story real quick." So I tell her what happened. She starts cracking up laughing. She goes, "What'd you do?" I'm like, "I came up here, started laughing, then called you." She goes, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I'm gonna go down and tell him that's not a word for you to use. So let's go to daycare." So I went down there and said, "That's not a word for you to use, but proper context was really good. Let's go to daycare." He didn't understand the whole proper context part, right? Because he's a
Yeah,
young kid. But I
yeah,
threw that in there because it was proper context.
yeah,
What he meant was it was soggy. They weren't. You can't eat them when they're soggy.
yeah. They weren't
Um,
more than good anymore.
right.
Okay.
So teachable moment was there actually for me. Okay, don't laugh at the moment. Remove yourself. Laugh. Come back. Discipline, but don't be a complete crazy discipline. Yeah, he used the word, but it's going to happen.
Yep.
The context was perfect, so
Credit
we
where it's
still
due.
laugh about this. Yeah, we still laugh about this today, me and him.
Does he ever just like randomly just say "ha"?
Yeah, being an army guy, and having
Oh
some
yeah, that's fair.
PTSD. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's a fun story for us.
yeah. I don't know if I've ever asked my dad that question on stream, but I'm sure there were multiple times, and for those that don't know, which means you haven't been watching the channel for more than a year, I am an identical twin. So there's another one of me. He sometimes appears in videos, but not often. Right? He doesn't live with me.
He's handsome. You're not.
Well, it was a lot easier to tell us apart when I had long hair.
I know.
Now it's much more difficult. But like I keep a longer ish beard. Like he works for the fire department, so he has to not. I told him to grow a mustache because he works for the fire department. I feel like that's a requirement, but he works in IT for the fire department, so it's a little different. But yeah, he now like he was watching me getting my head shaved at Smurf, and his girlfriend goes, "My God, you two are twins. You all look the same." Because I don't think she's ever seen me with short hair. So it
And
is.
your
It
hair
is
was
one of those
long
weird
too.
ones.
Your hair was like
Yeah, it
super
was
long.
down to about
Yeah.
here when it
Well,
wasn't
that's to
curly.
me, that's like super long.
Yeah, I just told my dad he was jealous. Thankfully, my eyes and my hair so far has been from my mom's side of the family, because her brother, my mom's brother's gotta be in his late 50s, early 60s at this point, full head of hair, right? Full head of hair, former service member as well. Um, and a lot of my mom's family have blue eyes, right? So I guess I got those two things. I'll take it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Otherwise I'm gonna. I thought they were gonna shave me, like scalp me bald, at Smurf. So I was like ready, willing, and able to accept the I'm gonna use my buffer when I get home to polish my head. But they were much nicer to me than I was expecting, and quite frankly, I'm slightly disappointed because I kind of would have
I
rocked the
remember
Mr. Clean
watching that
look.
actually, and I was like sitting here going, "That's not a shaved head."
It wasn't, man. I was just there. Okay,
Because
everyone else was doing the
in the
work.
military, yours was actually longer than we get when we go into boot camp because they
Oh
cut
yeah,
it down to like one, like
yeah,
level one,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and I guess I'll give a shout out to Teresa Lord, Jacob Lord's mother. They're the team behind Construct 3D. after the uh, after the head shaving, she came up and said, "No, no, no, sit down. I gotta fix this. They really screwed it up." So she went through and she just like lined everything out because it was rough. Suffice to say, no one that uh, shaved my head was a master barber. Let's go with that. Although the
Right?
Voron guys did a decent job, but they had the easiest logo, so
Yeah,
you know
it's just a B. Yeah.
it's gonna be weird because there's actually some content coming out in the next 2 months or so. One of it is still my long hair when we toured Prussia. I still have long hair in that video, and then there's a tour of E3D where my hair is all messed up. So we toured E3D after Smurf, and I interview everybody at E3D, and that's a emotional as hell video, but I have messed up hair for that. So people that don't know the story of my head shaving could be like, "What the hell is this? What is all of this?" It just takes us a very long time sometimes to get things through editing. So, um, but yeah, for me, I've watched my dad go through teachable moments with my brother, and I'm sure I've experienced them too. I don't recognize them. I think is that like one of those things about the teachable moment of, hey, if you recognize that it's a teachable moment, it wasn't really a teachable moment. Is that how that works?
I don't really know honestly, because sometimes the moment's gone, and then you recognize, well, that was a teachable moment, right?
Mm,
But there's still time to make it teachable, right? At that time, because if it's like even within a couple days, you can kind of go back and have the conversation with your sons or your kids and go, "Hey, remember a few days ago we did this?" And you kind of maybe reinforce it with something else to make it sink in a little harder in their heads. My dad did a lot of teachables with me, but it was mainly working on cars. All of the mechanical stuff I learned was from him. The cars he had were 60s, 70s, early 80s,
proper.
maybe, but mainly 60s and 70s models. So there was a lot of hands-on you can do with those cars.
Yeah.
Adjusting the points, right? I mean, all stuff like that. A
Yep.
carburetor,
On the
not a
distributor.
fuel injector.
Yep.
Exactly. So I learned a lot just doing brakes. Like how do brakes work, right? And it's
Oh, and
funny, I
drum
learned
brakes are
right.
way
Drum
harder
brakes
to
are,
work on than
but they
discs.
still working on them is
Oh
one
yeah.
thing, but they still operate in the same manner. Okay. And later on in high school, I learned before I even knew brakes are just Pascal's law.
Yep.
Okay. So when I was in physics class, I knew how brakes works through my dad. He never mentioned Pascal or anything like that, right? But I knew how it all worked because of, oh, you got to push the pedal and it pushes the drums and or the pads. Well, we're in physics class and he's talking about Pascal's law, and I'm just like, raise my hand. He goes, yeah. I'm like, is that how car brakes work? He goes, that's exactly how car brakes works. Good job. And I'm like, thanks, Dad. Because without Dad, I wouldn't have made that connection.
Right. Right. I think my dad always just gave us free reign to figure things out. And I think that was a really teachable thing for me because I'm just gonna let them figure it out. I'm just gonna, let them take it apart, and if there's extra parts but it still works, then all right, they built it better than the manufacturer did, I guess. And my brother and I were always tinkering, right? We were always
You
tinkering with
actually put
something.
things back together and it worked?
I mean, sometimes.
Because my dad hated when I did that because it never worked.
Sometimes it
Um,
didn't. Sometimes it didn't, and that's why we would. That's like if we were ever. So like I grew up in Orlando, Winter Park to be specific, and for those that know Winter Park, Florida, in the '90s, know Skycraft. Skycraft is, and if you ever go to Orlando, take a couple of hours and go to Skycraft. It's now north of Orlando, but it's totally worth it. You walk in and it smells like phenolic resin, and you know that you found Well, geek mecca, if you will, right? It's what Radio Shack should have been. They have over 1 million
This Radio
SKUs.
Shack.
Yeah, right. God, Radio Shack's so good. Just
There's still one around, I think, in the country.
yeah, but that's there's a technicality associated with that.
Hmm.
It's not
Hmm.
like Sky. You can go. Or you used to. I doubt they still have. You used to be able to buy space shuttle tiles from them.
Hmm.
They used to have a bunch of just surplus tiles from space shuttles because that was a thing. You can still buy shells to missiles from them because it's just old military surplus that they buy up and then they resell it. But any electronics component that you could. So if I ever wanted to take something apart, I could go there and ask questions. We could go. They could teach us. I learned how to solder because of them, right? And my dad just allowing me to go down these paths and say, "All right, yeah, let's just see what happens." Right? Let's just see what happens. You want to learn something? Go to Skycraft. Right? Skycraft's the best place to learn that stuff. And every time I go back there, I thank because a lot of the staff are still there from when I was a kid, and I go and I thank them and say, "You all are actively part of the reason why I'm the geek that I am today. Thank you." I feel like
I
that
broke
helps.
I broke so many things in the house from the time I was 12 to the time I was joining the Navy at 17. Like I broke the old console stereo. So I was curious, how does it work? Well, let's take it apart. Well, I didn't put it back together right. It didn't work ever. Well, that kind of was my motivation to actually work with my hands and learn things, right? Because I remember my dad telling me when I was 15, don't touch my shit because everything you touch turns to shit. Don't touch my stuff, right? He's like really pissed because I broke the stereo, I broke this, I broke that.
Mm-hmm.
Quit touching things. Everything you touch turns to shit. I remember him saying that. But I didn't take that as a negative. I took that as motivation to learn to fix these things. So 2 years into the Navy, I've got all these skills under my belt now. I know how to electronics works. I know how to fix electronics. I came home and fixed that stereo for him. And I said, "Hey, Dad, check it out." He was like, "Oh my God, it's working." He was like, "You actually fixed it? Only took you 10 years, but it's working."
Yeah,
it was classic.
my dad, and I talked about it on Deposition Sound last week, but my father will tell the story of when we committed audio sacrilege, and it was my brother or I don't know who, maybe it was the both of us. We ended up putting one of our foots through a passive radiator to his ESS AMT 1Bs, his favorite speakers he's ever owned, and he opted at that point to never repair them. He ended up parting them out and selling them because they were worth more in pieces than they were
Right.
worth together. The tweeters were special. It's a high layer motion tweeter. Go look them up if you care. We talked about it heavily last week. I don't want to get into it again this week.
That's all good.
Um, it was one of those teachable things for me of, yeah, you effed around and found out, and you got to be a little bit more careful, even if you're just kind of horsing around, right? I don't remember how old that we were. I don't even remember that it happened. I remember the speakers. I don't so maybe it wasn't me because I don't remember getting in trouble for it. So maybe it was Jonathan. I don't know. But it was just one of those things that like he's talked about before, and now that I'm into audio, I totally understand the pain that I would feel if that happened. But thankfully, I just have a cat. I don't have any kids. Just have a cat who is not present currently. She's busy. She's working. She's our director of marketing for a reason.
Yeah, she's missing.
Yeah, that's okay. Can I see her? Yep, she's in her tree. She's in her tree sleeping. Almost sitting up. Whatever, man. Cats are weird. So what was one of those things that you thought was going to be easy but ended up being very hard, and then one vice versa about being a dad?
Thought it was going to be easy, but it was hard. Being a dad, actually, you know, just in general, you don't think much of it, then you become a dad, and in some people that changes them like instantly. They become that father, that person who's caring and wants to be a part of that kid's life. And there's other people that when they become a father, it doesn't affect them one bit. Um, I was on the A side, not the B side. As soon as I held my first son, it was just an overwhelming feeling of I need to take care of this little dude.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh, this is real. Okay. Well.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like almost like a shock moment, right? Because I didn't feel that until I actually held him in my arms. and looked at him and was like, yeah, okay, this is responsibility. This is what it literally feels like.
Yeah. That's the weight of
Okay.
responsibility,
Yes.
literally.
Yeah. So I made a commitment to that. Right there, right then and there. It was not even something I thought about. It was just an automatic thing I did. Um, and I've carried that through my entire life. Like when I went through my divorce, I talked to my wife. We were going, I'm moving out. Okay. All right. I'll pay you this much a month for the kids while we're going through the divorce, just so everything's cool. She's like, okay, great. Apparently, that's not something that people do.
No.
But that's something I did. And I didn't think twice about it because they're my kids. I want to make sure they had a place to live, food to eat, clothing, all that. Right. So when I went through the divorce court and talked to the judge, he's like, you need to pay this much a month. And I was like, oh, that's less than I'm paying now. And he goes, excuse me? What do you mean less than you're paying now? I'm like, yeah, it's less than I'm paying. He goes, why are you paying now? I'm like, because they're my kids and they need to eat and they need a place to live and they need clothes. And that's what dads do. He goes, no one pays before the divorce court. No one ever has come in here say that's what you just said. No one ever said that. He was just completely thrown off. And I looked at that. That's a win.
Yeah, that's I would call that a dad win for sure. And that
Absolutely.
likely made that entire process considerably easier than it is for most.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. He actually gave me kudos at the end of it. He goes, I just want to say you came in here with no lawyer and did a really good job for yourself. And your ex-wife here has a lawyer and she had a really bad lawyer. That's all he said. He had a really bad lawyer. I just started laughing like, well, thank you, Judge. Have a good day. He goes, yeah, you too. And that was it.
That's responsibility is, yeah, a kid can obviously change that like overnight. And unfortunately, more and more often we see a lot of dads that are kind of running away from that, right? That responsibility.
That's what I meant when I said that A or B, right? You either have this feeling of responsibility, or some people have a feeling of it's a fight or flight, right?
Right. Yeah.
I want to fly. I want to go. I don't want nothing to do with this, right? That's some men feel that. I don't understand that because I had the other reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so what was something that you expected to be difficult but was quite easy about being
discipline, actually.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because I started early. I spanked my kids when they were little kids, and I gave them a stern look and a very stern stop
As
it.
the 80s and 90s people, calm down.
A spank in the butt.
Yeah.
I would still do it today because by the time they were 7, I didn't have to do it anymore because I just had to look at them and they go, oh shit, he's giving us that look.
Yeah, that's that look.
That look. That means we better get our shit straight right now because life can get real bad if we don't. And they would get in line. And some people may look at that, well, you've put fear in your kids. Yeah, I did. Absolutely. But that's part of being a parent.
Yep.
You're a parent first to your kids. Then they become adults. Then you can become their friends if you do it right.
Yeah.
Okay. Not always. Sometimes parents and kids don't get along when the kids become an adult. I had that going with my oldest son. I had to kick him out of the house, actually. That was the most difficult thing I ever did. But he graduated high school, and his brother and sister, this is when I was a single dad, and the 3 kids living with me. And he had graduated high school, living with me still. I wasn't charging him rent at the moment because it was literally 2 months after high school. And I come home from work, and he's in his bedroom with his girlfriend with the door shut. I said, well, that's a rule breaker right there. So I go upstairs, I open the door. I'm like, what are you doing in here? And I smell weed. I'm like, okay, rule number 2 broken. I don't care if you smoke weed, just don't smoke it in the house. That's disrespecting your brother and sister. Because, I smoke and he knew that. And it wasn't disrespecting me, but it is my house. And it's just disrespecting my house, my rules. Exactly. So, I say, hey, 2 rules broken: weed and girlfriend in the room, door closed. And he gets this, like, he's laying on this beanbag with his girlfriend and kind of hanging out. They're stoned, right? He jumps up and gets like attitude with me, like, what are you going to do? I'm like, all right. I just grabbed his little backpack. I said, all right, we're done. I said, threw it at him. I said, pack your shit, move the fuck out right now. And he thought I was kidding. I'm like, I'm not kidding. And then he became like, oh shit, this is real. What do you mean? I'm like, just get out of my house right now. I don't care where you go. I don't care. Just get out of my damn house. And he left, and I went to my bedroom and cried because that was so hard to do. I'm getting emotional about it right now.
Yeah.
And he, my ex-wife calls me about 2 days later. She goes, "Hey, I just heard what happened. That had to be tough." I'm like, "Yeah, it was really tough." And she goes, he just joined the Marines. I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, he just joined the Marines. I just want to let you know he's shipping out tomorrow." I'm like, "Whoa, he just joined and like just went in." Like, interesting. At that point, I'm like, I probably won't hear from him for about 2 years. That's what I said to myself. 6 months later, he calls me. He goes, "Hey, Dad." I'm like, "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, "I'm in the Marines." I'm like, "Yeah, I already know all that. Your mom talks to me." He goes, "I was a real asshole to you." I'm like, "What? What?" He goes, "I said, I didn't expect this call for 2 more years." He
Yeah.
goes, "Yeah, well, the Marines does a lot to you." I'm like, "I bet they do." So it was really nice to see him turn around that quick.
Yeah.
And we became friends after that. And of course, I'm still his dad. I still give him advice. You know, he buys a shitty car. I loan him money. Um, but we have a good relationship as an adult.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that was a good moment.
Now,
A bad at the time, but overall ended up being a great thing.
now, as a Navy guy, how do you feel about your son joining the Marines?
That's part of the Navy. So
Oh, okay.
he, that's the first thing that he's like,
Clearly, I
I
didn't
joined, he
serve.
goes, "I joined the real service," is what he says, right? I said, "Oh, you just joined the Army Department of the Navy." And he goes, "What?" I'm like, "You just joined the Army Department of the Navy." I said, "You just joined the Navy's grunts. That's part of the Navy. Look at your paycheck." And he didn't realize that until he looked at his paycheck. He goes, "Son of a bitch." He said, "You're right." I'm like, "Yeah, how could you not know that? Marines is part of the Navy. We have our own Air Force. We have our own Army. It's the only service that has that."
So wait, was he trying to was like joining the Marines like his little silent middle finger to you that
Pretty
in
much, I think, at the
reality
time.
actually
Right.
wasn't? Oh, that's
Yeah,
great. That's
exactly.
great.
Yeah. That was the best part about it.
Uh,
Yeah.
so is has he gotten married since then?
He got married and divorced, and he's the one with 3 kids. So he kind of started early. It was funny. He got injured in the Marines during what do they
So I feel
call
like
it?
that's a story that you
Combat.
tell at his wedding, right? That's a
During
story.
combat training, he got injured to where he was doing really well, and they
Mhm.
put him against this really big dude, and the big dude picked him up, body slammed him, and then suplexed, like did moves he shouldn't have been doing, like he thought he was in WWE or
Right,
something.
right.
Well, my son landed on his arm like this and broke his wrist here and his arm, both bones in two spots, right?
Nope. Nope.
Um, so he's got convalescent leave and
Yep.
like literally married a month before that. So he calls me up and I'm like, he's like, "Yeah, I got injured. I got convalescent leave." And the first thing I said to him was, "Don't get your wife pregnant." It's the first thing out of my mouth. Well, that's the first thing that happened. Got convalescent leave and you're newlyweds. Yeah. Yeah. Babies, twins, literally 9 months later, twins. So, and then they got separated and then back together. Then they had another kid. Then they got divorced. But he's got a girlfriend now, way better lady, and everything's good there.
Bet the twins were a bit of a bit of a wake up call. You're like, ha, ha, ha.
Yeah,
I'm gonna spoil these kids rotten.
yeah, I did too. It was funny. I took him out for ice cream when they were like 4. Right? I said, "I got them. Give me them for the day."
Yeah.
He's like, "Are you sure?" I'm like, "I'm granddad. I'm going to handle this." Right? He goes, "They're crazy because mom doesn't do any discipline, and at this point, he's been divorced for 2 years, so they don't listen to dad either." Right? I'm like, "I'm granddad. They're going to listen to me," and they were in a world of hurt because I was like, "I'm not your mom. I'm not your dad. I'm your granddad. You better do what I say because I'll spank you." And they were like, "Ha, ha," like, boom. They were like, "Oh shit, he's for real." Like, "Yeah, I'm not effing around here, kids. You better listen to me." And they got right in line. So we went out for ice cream, went for the movies, and then we went for ice cream later. And Eric, one of the twins, was being a little fussy at the ice cream place, and And I'm like, finally got him sitting down. I'm like, just, grab your cone and just give it a lick. He's like, he gets it real close to his face, and I just went right up his nose, right? He got like filled one of his nostrils literally
Oh
with ice cream.
gosh.
And he starts crying some more. And I'm like, what are you crying about? So I take his ice cream cone. I'm like, what are you crying about? Right on my nose, right? And I just left it there. This ice cream cone sticking off my nose. Next thing you know, we're all just laughing. His tears turn into laughing. And we still, he doesn't remember that because they were like 4. But I told CJ, my son, what happened. And he was just like, I can't believe you did that at the store. I'm like, oh, I had everybody at the store dying laughing. Are you kidding me? Everybody, like, this guy's awesome.
See that's I can see that. Now, I don't know if I'd recommend doing that today, right? The world's a little different today. That you
This
might
was
get
10
might get
because those
people
twins are
yelling
now
at you.
14. This was 10 years ago. So
Yeah, yeah.
I still tell people in the supermarket when I see a kid acting out, and you're going down the aisle, they're coming at you, and mom's got this like look on her face, like, oh my God. I just look at the kid and go, you're lucky I'm not your dad, because I'd spank you right here in the store. And the lady, most people look at me and go, thank you. They say thank you. They don't get mad. They say thank you.
Well, I think a lot of parents understand the frustrations, and now that parenting has kind of changed, right? And it has morphed for years. Parenting has morphed for years, where it's not the same, and with added technology can come, whether it's revelations into what we should be doing versus what we are doing, or what becomes socially acceptable. Some parents are like, I know that I can solve this, but I can't solve it right now. You can't like yell at your kids in public anymore. People,
You can't do anything anymore. I've
yeah.
got friends who are young. I was just had lunch Friday with my friend Echo, who's 32, and she's got 4 kids. And she's constantly dealing with Department of Children Services, because it's really just like, I'm like, that for that? She's like, yeah. I'm like, I said, my dad and mom would have been like locked up if that was the case, okay? Because this is how it was when I was a kid. And I was a bad kid. I was always, I was grounded constantly. I was to the point where I would be grounded and they would be like, just get the hell out. But I'm grounded. And we just lifted just get out of the house. You're driving us crazy. But I do that on purpose because I'm being grounded so
I was
long.
gonna say that was your cheat code. It was to become a
Absolutely,
pain in the
I'm
ass until
driving
they tell you
crazy,
to
so
leave.
they lift the grounding. Okay, cool. I can go out and get in trouble again, and then 3 days later, I'm back grounded because I'm a kid. But I had ADHD, but I didn't know it. So back then, the drug for ADHD was discipline.
That's fair.
That's
That's
what it was. I'm
totally
not kidding.
freaking fair.
That's exactly what it was. You're
Yeah.
you're an unruly kid. We don't know why. We're gonna just discipline the shit out of you. That was my life as a kid.
Do you think that actively adjusted the way that you parent? Also, my dad is in the chat, and he said twins equal grandpa's revenge, and I think that's
Absolutely.
correct. Yeah. But do you think that you being a bit of a menace as a kid and seeing how your parents handled, do you think that adjusted and helped you become a better dad?
Yeah, not just that, but having 2 dads. Okay, I got a bio dad and I got a stepdad. When I say dad, I'm talking about stepdad
Yeah,
exclusively.
you don't have to
okay?
be the biological dad to be a dad,
Bio dad was like, I had really great example from stepdad and a really poor example from bio dad at the same time in my life. Okay, I'll give you an example. Bio dad had custody on weekends. Okay. Stepdad would drive us from New Jersey to Connecticut so bio dad could get visitation, because bio dad wouldn't pick us up.
So that's a pretty
Right?
far drive, isn't it?
It's about a 6-hour round trip.
Jeez. Okay.
Right. So
he's doing that twice.
Stepdad wanted to make sure, yeah, he would come up on a Saturday morning, drop us off, then come back Sunday night, like late Sunday night, pick us up late. We would sleep on the way home.
Yeah.
So we can get the most amount. Sometimes he'd drive us up Friday night. So we get the most amount of time with dad, because he thought it was important for us to spend time with our real father. So real dad, right, had another wife. Her name was Phyllis. And Phyllis didn't like kids. So I didn't like Phyllis because it was pretty apparent
Okay.
Phyllis didn't like us.
Yeah.
But bio dad was a player. He always had another girl on the side. He was an Italian man who was brought into America because he married my mom with an arranged marriage. Okay, in the late 60s. Mid 60s. So, the marriage didn't last.
Right. As they
But
didn't.
his example of being a father would be, okay, we're at my house with my wife, who's never going to go out and do stuff with the kids because she just didn't do that. But we would go to his girlfriend's house after we leave his house. Her name was Karen. She was cool. We loved Karen because Karen was fun. And they would go to the bedroom for an hour while we watched TV, and then we go to the park. Okay. Well, as a kid, I didn't know what's going on in the bedroom, but as an adult, I sure as hell do. Um, we go to the park, right? And then at the park, Bio Dad would hey, we have a good time. We love Karen. We want Karen to replace Phyllis, honestly, as kids, right? Because Phyllis sucked. Um, but he would give us beer, here, have a sip of beer. Don't tell Phyllis about Karen. And as a kid, okay, I get to drink a little bit of beer. It's just that's like the worst example ever as a father.
Parenting back in the good old days.
Right, but as a kid, I didn't think anything of this. But as a teenager, I'm looking back at all this, going, "Damn, this guy was terrible." Like,
he was just that probably wasn't the right thing to do.
I'm a cool dad. Here, have some beer. No, you're just trying to cover your. But as a kid, I'm thinking I'm going to tell Phyllis anyway because I hate Phyllis. All right, I want Karen to replace Phyllis, so it doesn't matter if you give me beer or not. I'm telling Phyllis about Karen, and I did.
As a kid, you thought you won the lottery here.
Yeah. I get beer, and I'm going to tell you anyway.
And as an adult, you're like, oh, that was a little manipulative.
This is very manipulative what he was doing, and so would I. I was like, well, I'm gonna play your game too.
Well, it's different when you're a kid, right? I don't know. I feel like the
kid,
dad is to blame
Phyllis.
here.
I hated Phyllis.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't stand the lady. My brother and sister didn't have a problem with her, but I didn't like her one bit. For some reason, she just rubbed me the wrong way every time. I remember one time she asked us before we left to the park, I want every kid to say something brilliant before you go. So my brother said something stupid. My sister said something stupid. And all right, Chris, what are you going to say? I'm just like sitting to myself going, I'm not saying anything. And that's brilliant. That's what I said. And my dad my bio dad just starts cracking up laughing because he thought that was funny and actually very, very brilliant. And she got really mad about that. And he's like, what are you getting mad about? He did what you asked. Okay, let's go, kids. But she held on to that forever, like would bring it up later. I'm just like, crazy lady.
So that obviously helped you get a better position of what to do for your kids, right?
Yeah, I mean, don't if you're going to lead by a good example, not a poor example.
Yeah.
Try to reinforce positive things. That's a very negative thing to do to your kid. Here, drink some beer. Don't tell him.
And stepdad here building the proper bonds of going out of his way.
Exactly.
Probably too tired to drive himself, but he said, you know what? I got to do it for the kids. It's best for them. And
setting the extreme good example to the extreme bad example, Right. So yeah, I saw both in real time. I look at when I became a father, most of the things I look at what am I do? It would be always stepdad, right? Mm-hmm. Not real dad. Bio dad. I call him bio dad, biological dad.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Real dad and stepdad are bio dad.
But me and bio dad now have a relationship as adults because he knows he screwed up later on in life and wrote a letter saying, I'm so, whatever, I screwed up, I want to get back into your life and all this stuff. So I read that letter like 10 times and then wrote him one back. And I said, okay, I'll give you a chance to be back in my life, but you're going to start with my kids, your grandkids. And that'll tell me whether you're serious or not. And he actually was serious and became active in their lives. And I was like, I told him, I said, hey guys, be prepared for this man to be asking questions and wanting to know about you. He's your granddad, because they didn't even know about him.
Yeah.
At that point. They're like, who? I'm like, his granddad was my stepdad did that. Mm-hmm. So, I had to break it down to him. And they were like, okay.
Yeah, there's math involved in this one.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And they were teenagers at that point. My daughter was probably 10. My boys were 14 and 16.
So they're old enough to process.
They're old enough to totally understand everything, right?
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, cool. And then, like I said, he actually got involved in their lives. And then, hey, all right, I want to come visit you. Okay, great. Yeah, come on out. So he came out and visited for 2 weeks while we were, living in Georgia. And we had a great time and started having a relationship at that point. And I told him straight up, said, I'm never going to forget everything that you did in the past, but I'm not going to hold it against you going forward either.
That's fair. I think that's fair.
I'm not going to forget it.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and that's respect,
The whole
right?
forgive and forget, that's bullshit. You
No, you
forgive,
don't
but you
forget.
don't forget.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I do agree. Um, so that means is he still around? Is he still
Yeah,
alive?
he actually he's again he's only 21 years. I did what he did. He started at 21, I started at 21. So I've actually got a picture which I was trying to find for you with all of us, my dad,
Four
me, my son,
generations.
and his sons all in
Yeah.
one picture. Yeah.
So he's
And
got
21
great
years apart.
grandkids.
Yeah. I just couldn't find it. And my son's like, "Yeah, I'll look for it this weekend." I'm like, I didn't want to tell him what I needed it for because I'm waiting for him to forget Father's Day, right?
Just so you can hold it against him for fun, right?
Just for fun, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so advice for new dads, right? What is some advice that you could give after having this experience as not only a dad, but as a granddad? What is some advice that you could give to new dads that you wish that you knew?
I'm
Whether or
going
not
to
they
tell you
listen to
something
it.
that I think is very important. Don't miss the recitals. Don't miss the school events. Go to every one of those. They only happen once. You got one shot to do it, and do it, because the look on your kid's face when they see you in the audience is priceless. You're never going to see that. You got to see that. I made a point of that. I actually quit a job because the job was not cool about it. Oh, we're family oriented company, when they hire you, right? Until I got a recital at Friday at 3. I'm not miss. Well, we need you to work. It's Friday at 3. It's a recital for my kids. We're family oriented, right? No, we need you to work. Yeah, well, I'm going to the recital. Well, if you go to the recital, you won't have a job Monday. Okay, I'm going to the recital. So I went to the recital. I showed up to work Monday. They were like, "What are you doing here? We told you you don't have a job if you don't go to the recital." I'm like, "I thought you were kidding because I thought this was a family oriented business." And that's kind of like the whole point of it, right? That's the family. No, we were serious. I'm like, "Okay, fine." So I left, got another job at their competitors, and took half their customers with me. And then they called me up and begged me to come back. I'm like, "No, no, this other place is actually a family oriented business. I'm going to work for them now."
Yeah. I'm not a dad, so I can't say that I've ever had to do that, but I operate similarly with our team. Um, the group of 3D Musketeers, and I say, look, your family comes first. If you got kids, something going on, and we gotta change a date, we gotta move something, whatever. I don't care. Just let me know. I I,
Right.
I would much rather, like, we had to move an event that we were doing 4 hours with like 2 hours notice, right? And that's
That's
rough,
critical. That's
right?
crunch
That's
time. Yeah.
rough. I wasn't happy with it, but I totally understand. They said, "Hey, my family's in town last minute. I'm sorry. Can we move it?" I said, "No problem. I got you." I just had to do some quick things to move my day around to make it work. And I never want somebody to miss something with their family because, it sucks to say this, but it's life. It might be the last time you ever see them. And I don't want them to be like, "Oh, I'm working. I'm sorry. I can't make it." And then they never get that family member doesn't make it to the next event, or they don't make it
Right.
home, whatever it is. And then they're forever regretting that decision. They're forever a little bit, resenting the company. And it's not worth it, man. It's
No.
not. And if our clients don't get it, or our fans or whomever don't get it, F them. We don't need them, right? I've turned clients down. Literally, we canceled a contract last year. It's a pretty significant contract too, because we had a staff member that had a family emergency and the client was unwilling to move their meeting time. Don't care.
For a meeting. Wow.
Yep, they said, "We don't care." I said, "Well, then I don't care about you. You're going to pay the rest of your invoice. I'm not going to bill you for any time that we haven't used. So I'm just going to net out your invoice to whatever it is,
Sometimes
and
you
we're
have to
parting
fire
ways."
customers. Yep. Yep.
And
I've
that
had to fire a few customers in my life.
it hurts because it wasn't my family, but I have to stand by the team and say,
That's your company's
yeah,
mission statement, though. It's not just your family; it's everybody in your company's family.
right.
Right.
And so when I have family emergencies, the team, they're happy to help, right?
Absolutely.
Um, you know,
Because they know if they have an emergency, you're going to do whatever you need to do to accommodate
yeah.
that situation.
And to the team members in the chat, this is not like some long game to allow me to have a family emergency, okay? This is like actually what giving a shit looks like. I think that's something that my dad taught me early on, was you just gotta give a shit. And a statement that he made many times when I was in college is a statement that I use when I hire. I don't care about people's resumes. What is a resume other than nowadays it's a professional Tinder profile, right? That's all a resume is. And now everyone's making them to fit these stupid AI
Yeah.
bullshit that just it's I don't even know what the stupid thing is called, but resumes look like crap these days. So I barely even read them. I can learn everything I need to know about somebody in the 20 minutes to 2 hours that it takes me to interview them, right? If we have a good interview, if you are ever interviewing with me and we end an interview within 20 minutes, I can confidently tell you, unless I offered you the job on the spot, you're not getting the job. Because I learned everything I needed to know about you. And ultimately, I don't hire people based on skill. I hire them on give a damn. I can teach you anything in the world that you want to know, and you can learn anything in the world that you want to know. The one thing, my dad has always taught me this, the one thing I can't teach you is to actually give a damn. And it's why we have a great team. We have a great team because ultimately they just care. And some of them don't have the skill set for their job, and some of them are learning it. Some of them are taking some time to figure out what they want to do with their lives. And I tell them, I'm here to support you. Whatever you need, we are here. We want to help you figure this out.
The skill sets there is just the workflow doesn't match the skill set too, right? And you have to kind of mesh them together because not everybody has the same workflow.
Yeah. I'm going to call out one of our editors because it happened last night and it's way too funny not to call him out. So I'm going to clip this. Andrew, I know you're going to be editing this. Send this to Rob and make him edit this because it's way funnier if Rob has to edit this. So we have two video editors, splits the work, makes it easier, and means I always lose money on the YouTube channel. It's exactly how this works. It's not intended. It's just the way that it goes. I don't have time to edit. He messages me at like 11:30 at night in the YouTube private section of our Discord, and he said, "Hey, can I get access to Parsec? Because we do remote editing. It's easier, and my internet sucks. We do remote editing." He said, "My laptop died, and I forgot the charger at home." I said, "Does it have a USB-C port?" He said, "It does." Said, "Plug it into USB-C." He's like, "Wait, what?" He had a whole thing. It was like a whole thing. He thought he was gonna have to log into Parsec on the family computer. And it's fine because all the hardware's here. They're just remoting in via software, so they don't need any hardware. And he had this whole moment of like, "Oh my God, it's amazing." I'm like, dude, this is what we do. And if you needed a laptop charger and you didn't want to log it on Parsec, we would find a way to overnight you a laptop charger. I would find a way to make this happen because if you are comfortable working on your specific laptop or your specific computer, then I want you to do that. I want you to be comfortable. And let me first find out if we have the secret, which is USB-C all of the things, and we totally did. So,
nice.
Hi, Rob. You don't actually have to turn this into a short, but it's way funnier if you do. Love you, buddy.
I get that all up because I work IT. I've been working IT for years, so I totally understand all that.
Yeah, and he didn't know, and I think that's an honest thing. That's an honest thing not to know if your laptop came with a barrel jack charger. You never tried it, so my laptop, my personal laptop, stated from the factory that it can't be charged via USB-C. It definitely can because it's the only way that I use it now, and it's great. Nice. But it's one of those funny things, right? That you don't expect, but hey, that's life. For me, I sit here and say that some people become dads because they want to be. Some people become dads because of an accident. That doesn't make either of them worse or better than the others. I think that it takes someone that actually cares. And Chris, it's obvious to me that you do care, right? Yeah. And that's a big deal because there are a lot of dads out there that are absent, that don't do anything, that they're dead.
They go out of their way. They go out of their way to not pay.
Yeah, or they.
Okay, and that I don't understand that, number one, and Deadbeat dads to me can just fuck off.
Amen. Dude, amen to that. You know, and if you're going to accidentally butt dial one of your kids and, you know, apologize over text because you haven't talked to them in a couple of years, the least you can do is at least call to check in on them and see how they're doing. I'm not making a very blatant statement to a specific individual that is not my father and is no relation to me, but I'm making a specific statement to somebody, and I hope that they hear it, because you could do better. And there are dads out there that could. And if you are one of those dads, today's the day to make that change. Today's the day to make that shift. And I don't care if you're hearing this on Father's Day or a different day. It doesn't matter. Today's the day to make that change. Today's the day to change the narrative. Like, Chris, you explained how you had what could easily be described as a deadbeat dad.
Oh, yeah, totally deadbeat dad.
Who has...
That later on in life changed his mindset and understood what he did wrong and came clean with everything he did in a letter. So if you are a deadbeat dad and you do want to try to make things right,
it's
don't
not
text.
too late.
Write that letter. All right? That letter will mean so much more because you wrote it on paper.
Yeah, don't email.
Okay?
Don't do emails, man.
Don't email. Write it on paper.
Write a letter.
Paper's permanent.
Yeah. And use a good pen, damn it.
Yes.
Don't use a crappy pen.
Take your time to make your handwriting legible.
Well, all right, let's not. We're asking a lot of things here, okay?
For me, that's like a 3-day letter just to write
not,
one
like
page.
I said, I think we're asking for a lot. Let's write the letter. I think your kids will be able to read it, but it is never too late to be able to change that narrative. And if you realize that, oh shit, I'm the guy they're talking about, get the pen and paper out, write the letter. It's not difficult. It's gonna hurt. You're gonna cry, and there might be little dots of water on the paper. If someone's cutting onions, then go cut some damn onions while you write. I don't care. Funnier if you make the paper smell like onions. Like, absolutely funnier if you make the paper smell like, I'd say, someone's been cutting onions this whole time. I don't understand it. But my humor's terrible in that way. But please change that narrative, because your kids do care about you. There's just been a relationship break, and it's time to bring it back. Right?
Amen.
Tech Jeeper says, can I have a drawbot write the letter on paper? There should be no maker deadbeat dads out there, okay? If you're a maker and a deadbeat dad, we're going to come and throw benchies at you or something. I don't know.
I remember a couple of years back, I'm a big Portland Timbers fan. And I had a friend of mine who was, a fan as well. We met at games, and he was a fun dude to hang around with. And one day we're out having a beer, and he's talking about his daughter. I'm like, I didn't know he had a daughter. How old is she? I'm thinking like, 2 maybe. He's like, oh, she's 14. And then he starts talking about how he's past due on payments and all this. I literally got up off the table. I said, you're a fucking deadbeat dad? And he goes, what? I said, you're a deadbeat dad. He goes, I guess you can call me that. I'm like, I'll see you later. And I walked away and never talked to the dude again. At that point, I'm like, I can't have this person in my life. I had to do it. I was compelled to do it. It was weird, but it was fun at the same time, because I'm like, you piece of shit, get away from me. I don't want nothing to do with you.
It's an adrenaline rush.
It was weird. You know what I'm saying? It was weird, but at the same time, he got really offended. And I'm like, I'm offended I didn't find out earlier, because I spent time with you, and I got memories that are good that I don't want.
Yeah. PDX Serial Killer. That's a great name. Says go Timbers.
Yes, go Timbers. Yeah, he works at Protopasta.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Yes.
I don't know who that is. Yeah, I saw that you did some work with Protopasta recently.
Yeah, I did a little event with a marketing person, Heidi, at a school that her son goes to.
Nice.
And it was a little STEM or STEAM event. They call it STEAM here instead of STEM.
That's fair.
But basically, I had the table with a couple of A1 minis on it, and we had prints going. We had prints. We pre-printed little spinners, little fidgets, and it was crazy. I mean, just about every kid in that school stopped at that table, and half of them tried to touch the printer while it was going.
It's funny. I never have this problem.
They grab the bed, right? And it stops the bed. I'm like, well, that's a ruined print.
Dude, I never have this problem. Ever. I never, if I ever have the issue of people touching the printers at events, it's the adults. It's never the kids. The
It was the
kids
kids. So
always get it.
after that first happened, I went and bumped the temperature up to 70 on the bed. So the next kid who touched it, they were like, "Ooh, that's hot," and it prevented other kids from touching it. It would totally work.
Apparently, I know who PDX serial killer is because we played Poochacorn at the Gloop after party.
There you
Uh,
go.
had to be there. But that cool.
Yeah, I actually did the design for the school. It was funny. She goes, "It's this school in Portland." So I went to their website and I found their logo,
Grab
which
the
was just
logo.
an owl, and I turned that into a keychain, little owl keychain, and
Nice.
then I turned it into a light box, and we gave that light box away as a raffle at the event. We actually gave it away after we collected names, so kids were putting their name, and this first kid's like just puts Josh and sticks it. I'm like, "All right, Josh, put your full name."
Hey, I need your
Because
last name
there's
on there
probably more
too.
than one Josh in this school. He goes, "Oh, okay." So first, I said, if you want, put your grade. That would probably work. So put your first name, last name, and your grade, and we'll figure out where you're at based upon that.
I want to do so many more events like this, and it is a ton of work. For those that have never done events, especially at schools, they are a real pain in the ass. There's a lot of effort that it takes to do it. But man, if it ain't freaking worth it every time, my back
It
hurts the
was
next
totally
day.
worth it.
It's always worth
The
it.
light box was the special add-in that I kind of threw at the end because I told Heidi, I said, I'm doing these because she's like, we could do some fidgets. I'm like, you do the fidgets, and I designed these keychains. She's like, oh, great. So I'm like, I need more colors because I don't have the colors in Protopasta for this. So she gave me some more filament to use for the event. And then at that point, I'm like, I'm gonna do a light box too. So I dropped a light box on her like the night before the event. I said, "Oh, we're giving this away too." And she was like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" She was blown away. I was just like, "Well, I said I did this all in a week. If you would have given me more time, I could have done more." And she's like, "You did this all in a week." Yeah, if you had more time, you probably would have like made like way. I'm like, "Yeah, but just for future events, if you give me more time, we can do more."
Dude, that's what I love about this community. We're finding ways to inspire the future generation of makers, right? We challenge them to think critically, to trust but verify, and just all the things that make sense. Um, Now I gotta know. So you had a couple of Bamboo A1 minis. Are those your favorite printers currently right now? Is that what you're rolling with? What's
I Here at the house, I've got 14, 15 printers that I have, but I don't really use any. I use the bamboos mainly. I've got two X1Cs here, and I picked up an A1 Mini a
Mhm.
week before that event, just for the event, actually, because I wanted to have something at the event.
They're like
Uh,
$250 or something like that
Yeah,
these
with the
days.
AMS, it was like three something. I had
So
some
cheap.
Maker World gift cards I threw in there, so it knocked $120 off the price there. So, and of course, I bought it like they have a sale now going on, right? And the cutoff for that, oh, you get a rebate if you had it delivered on May 20th or later. Well, I got mine on May 17th.
Of
So
course.
no rebate for me, but
Of
not a big
course.
deal. I needed it for the event, and the event went well. Um, Protopasta was kind enough to give me a $50 gift card for my efforts at the event, which I thought was really nice. So I still won.
You know, every event that we go to, it always costs me money, right? Almost never do we net positive out of events financially. But man, if it ain't the best, like, hard work therapy that I've done, like, just to see other people be excited about something that over time, if you haven't hit that point where 3D printing is just like, okay, it's a thing, and to see other people like, oh my god, it's
Yeah,
amazing. You're like,
yeah,
you're right. This is amazing. I forget how amazing this is. It's it's awesome. It
it is.
really is. And to inspire others, like that's half the reason that we do this is to inspire others to also do this kind of stuff, right? Because we want more makers in this community. We want more makers no matter what their age bracket is, right?
Absolutely. I work with a local maker here. She goes by Feisty Kitty 3D,
Mm-hmm.
and she's literally about 2 miles from my house. And she had an event last weekend in Oregon, Silverton, Oregon, just a couple hours away from here. And she invited me out for Saturday. She goes, "Why don't you join me Saturday? Bring some of your stuff and you can put it on my table." It didn't go really well because it was a warm day. People, it's beginning of summer, so not a lot of people there. Overall, it was a loss for the day, but I got to hang out with my friend Tracy for the day, which was to me that was a win. I got to make contacts with people there, and I gave away a few things to other vendors. This one vendor that was next to us, she makes little metal rings, like skull rings and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And I had a plastic skull that I had printed with big eye sockets, and her rings actually fit in those eye sockets.
Oh
So
yeah, they gotta have it.
I put the skull in there. I'm like, all right, we're gonna keep this here for today. And at the end of the day, I was like, that's yours to keep. She was like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I can't take that off your table. It looks too good.
Yeah, that's too
Yeah,
cool.
it's meant to be here, so just take it. She's like, you serious? Just take it? I'm like, yeah, just take it.
We went to an event what, last week? Last weekend? Yeah, it was last weekend because my back is still hurting. Called Gulf Coast MakerCon. It's held in what should be an abandoned mall, but is still holding on for dear life, apparently, in Tampa. And we brought out the Magneto X. We try to bring the Magneto X to shows where I have help to go to shows because it can fit in the girlfriend's car. It does not fit in my car.
The big
Um,
printer.
yeah, but we don't print on it. We just have it move at 1250 millimeters a
Okay.
second the whole time. Because when you can shake a table and you can hear it, you can hear the table shaking,
That brings people over.
brings
Yeah.
people over. But we brought the Mark IV and the 5 tool head XL. The XLs are not easy to move because
No.
they've got a bunch of cabling and stuff, and you have to be careful because if a tool head falls off while you're in transit, you have to
You just gotta
recalibrate the whole
you gotta
thing.
recalibrate that whole thing, right? Yeah.
Which is
That's
fine.
exactly what I was thinking. Yeah.
It's built in. It takes like 20 minutes, no big deal. But it's like, yeah, I brought $60,000 of 3D scanners with me too, so that people could experience high-end 3D scanning. Here, try it, enjoy it. I won't tell you what it's worth because if I tell you what it's worth, you're not going to pick it up. I want you to pick it up. I want you to try it. And for me, it's always about getting those hands-on experiences, those aha moments. The X Tool sent us the F1, so I bring the F1 with me to shows. So we make my business card, which my business card is often made of wood. It'll focus eventually. Yeah, my business
Mhm.
card is made of wood. That's a public phone number. I didn't just dox myself. Um, but we have metal blanks, and the metal blanks take 18 seconds to make.
Wow.
So we can bring it there with a custom 3D printed jig. This is for 2 of the wood cards. These don't work. Bummer, but they look cool. Um, we can take the jigs there, and I can tell a kid, hey, hit this button twice.
Even
Boom,
though it
the
doesn't
machine
work,
starts up. Huh?
it shows a process, right? Even though it doesn't that jig doesn't necessarily work or
Oh
whatever,
yeah.
it still shows a process to people that they can visually see.
And the only reason it doesn't work is because of how galvanometers work, and that the lays since it's a galvo, so the laser's basically dead center on the build plate. As it gets further toward the edges, the power is weaker because you're further away from the focal point.
Okay.
So the bottoms and the tops of the cards, depending on where they are, they don't burn as well as it does near the center. So, okay, fine. We learned this. This was nice filament, but oh well. I don't bring that one because that one was our test piece and it's got burn marks all over it. But I do bring the other jigs that we have to show people that yes, there are ways to do this that are just a little bit different and a little bit interesting. And inspiring youth is, I feel like that's part of what makes being a dad awesome, that you're able to inspire your kids constantly. But as not a dad, I do like inspiring kids because I know for me, I can tell you the person who wasn't my dad, right? My dad obviously very, very big into letting me just kind of learn, but I can tell you the person, his full name, of what that impetus was for me to go after this kind of engineering style. His name was John Winchester. He was my high school science teacher for junior and senior year, and he was a former NASA aeronautical engineer who retired to go teach in high schools to be able to inspire kids, and he inspired me to do what I do.
Nice.
And that's
Nice.
all of us likely have that person in our lives that we can still remember. That was literally half of my life ago. I don't remember a lot prior to 2020. For a lot of you, that was because of human malware. For me, it was human malware and my back being destroyed. But I remember him. And I remember those impactful moments where he said, I don't know if this is going to work, but let's just try it. let's see what happens. And it was very much like what my dad did. I think that's pretty cool. And so
It's
those of
very
you that are
cool.
out there inspiring other kids, good job, because you don't know what their home life is like, and you might really help them out. Because I have a great home life, right? I talk to my dad all the time. Talked to him yesterday, and I talked to him today probably. And you know, if a kid doesn't have a great home life, if they have a deadbeat dad, and you're able to give them a little bit extra so that they don't feel as bad as they would otherwise, you've made a good impact. It's
Hmm.
always worth it, right?
Right. Absolutely. You may actually have more of an impact than you realize.
It's a lot of good dad advice going on here. I appreciate it. Seriously.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um,
Been a fun chat.
Now, where do the people find you?
They find me mainly on the Xverse, the Twitter. My models are on Things. I haven't put many up recently. I've been busy at work. I'm a systems administrator at a
Okay.
small credit union. So we're moving our credit union. So I'm trying to move our data center into a co-location and all this fun stuff and doing it on a very slim budget. Excuse me, a very slim budget, which always makes it fun because things cost money and they never budget everything. And there's always something that squeaks in that you hadn't thought of because you've never done this before. So, there's a lot. And so my focus has been getting that done proper before I've got some models I've actually been working on. I'll grab something real quick here.
Yeah.
Being a Navy guy, uh, I actually work in my shop at the office. We're all ex-Navy people. I'm an electronics technician. My boss is an ex-radioman, and my underling is an ex-corpsman who transitioned into IT when she got out. And I saw a bumper sticker on the back of my boss's car, and I don't happen to have the exact one here, but it basically looked like this with his
Wow.
radioman emblem on it, and it said radioman on the bottom. With it had the insignia for radioman here. So I made one of those, and I said that came out nice. And I said, well, how many insignias are there? Well, there's a shitload of Navy, and I've got a lot of them done. I mean, just about every job in the Navy has a specific emblem.
Dude, that is
So
really those are not big. That is quality work.
that's the chief one, the senior chief one. So I
Nice
did senior
job.
chief, master chief, and then regular chief. So we got E8, E7, E8, E9 here, and they're all the same template, just different name and
Yeah.
and insignia.
But that's a
So
quality piece.
it's a very quality piece. Thank you for
Yeah.
noticing. So I've done like 63 of these out of like 70, I think, of the jobs.
I'm guessing you're running
Um,
X1 on the X1s for this, right?
yeah, all the X1s face down.
Are they
Um,
running point .4 nozzles or what are they running to
point
get that
point
detail?
point four. I'm getting
Dang,
detail
man.
like that
That's
with a point four.
quality. That is really good on a point .4. Jeez.
That's because with an X1, you can print a point
I
two
mean,
one line thickness with a point four nozzle. It's just super under extruded.
you can on
But
most
to get
printers
that
for
detail on the first layer, you
yeah.
set the first layer to that, and everything on above that, it doesn't really matter. It could be a little thicker because your first layer is already good. So that's kind of what I do. First layer is super thin lines to fill all those little gaps, and then it's normal. I go to a point three usually for the second and third layer.
Yeah, you're slowly building it up. Yeah.
If you look on the side there, you can see that the top there is only point 0.6 thick, and then
Yeah.
it goes to a point 0.2 blue line, and that blue line fills in all the small gaps that maybe so you won't get like a white underneath it or a gold underneath
Hmm.
it, and then I back it with the gold. So this actually has a different gold because I was running out of the gold for the front and I didn't want to run out because I was doing so many. So I switched to a different gold just for the back. But yeah, so I've got, like I said, 62. I'll be releasing this as a complete set very soon. Not individual coasters. That's going to be way too much work. So I look at it as this is a Navy, and I made a submarine coaster holder.
Nice. I
So
love
that's
it.
the submarine, and then the
Yeah,
coasters
yeah.
just kind of slide right into the sub, and it holds 10, I think, 10 or 12 coasters. No, I haven't put the cork on the back. I've got a point 0.1 millimeter thick cork that way they stick to the table
Easy,
better.
easy, yeah.
Because as you know, plastic likes to slide
Oh
on
yeah,
everything.
especially when it gets wet. It's just gonna.
Yeah.
It will not be a coaster anymore.
And I make my coasters thicker than most people for a reason because the water doesn't get absorbed through.
Mm-hmm.
It'll sit on the top.
Yeah.
Whereas a thin coaster will leak through the bottom onto the table, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of a coaster.
Bit of a trick with that. Mix up some epoxy, but make it a little bit thinner than you think it should be.
Put down coating on the bottom.
Sponge.
Okay. Okay.
Go get a cheap sponge and use a sponge to dab the coaster. It won't and very, very, very lightly. It should help fill in those gaps, but it's not going to give that bar top look where it's
Right.
all shiny. No one likes that look. It's not a good look.
But plus, it makes it slick and slippery
Mhm.
when that surface, right? I actually bought some coasters for the Timbers. It's got the Timbers tea with a beer on the coaster.
Yeah.
And they're like kitchen tile thickness, right? And they're nice. They're nice coasters. I bought them at the Saturday market. Set of 4 for like $20.
Nice.
But they're crappy coasters for coasters just because of how they're made. They're more of a just put them out for display.
That's fair. Yeah, I mean, I guess fancy coasters, but people may not use. I don't know. The other thing I love, do you have a laser?
I do not.
Might be the next one to play with.
Lasers scare me.
Yeah, and that's fair, especially the diode lasers that companies make that are just relatively unprotected.
Right.
Thankfully, I have a very nice pair of glasses, so I can verify if their system is protecting enough. And
I was looking at that water jet thing though. That seems interesting.
oh, they're so
Tabletop
expensive
water
though.
jet, but
The
it's super
Wazer.
expensive, right? Yeah, the Wazer, yeah.
And so the cost of the water jet is not like 15 grand, something like that. It's not too bad for that they can cut metal. It is the garnet. The amount of garnet that you're going to go, that stuff gets crazy expensive unless you buy it by the Gaylord or by the pallet. And there is no place in most modern day homes to store a pallet of crushed garnet.
Right. I don't have the space for that. Who does?
Exactly.
Right.
And I'm told there are ways to separate the old garnet, clean it, and reuse it, but man, yeah, I don't know. And by the way, at least on the OG Wazer, I don't know if they fixed it on the Wazer Pro. They're not very well sealed, so when you get blowback, when you're trying to do the piercing move and it blows back at all the angles, it often finds its way outside of the machine. So, the splash zone around the machine is also often gritty. Now, I've seen the new Wazer Pro. I want one. I don't have the OG Wazer, but I do want the Wazer Pro. It is, if I'm spending 15 grand plus right now, I'm either buying a new 3D scanner or I'm going to buy a slightly newer car.
The car is probably on the higher of the list there, I'd say. Although you don't drive that much, so.
Dude, I put 4,000 miles on last year.
That's nothing.
The whole year. Yeah.
That's nothing.
No, I don't. The car's a 2002 with 183,000 miles on it, and I have since. So I got the car.
That's actually low for a 2002.
Exactly. So the last time that I got the oil change at the dealer was theoretically January of 2017. Because I still have the window sticker that says it's due for its next oil change, 5 of 17, at 122,000 miles. So in 7 years, wait, is that right? Yeah, almost 8 years now, I've put less than 50,000 miles onto the car.
Wow.
Or no, 60.
I've got a 2014 Tacoma. A 2014 Tacoma with just hit 75,000 miles. So that's low for a 10-year-old truck.
But it's a Taco. Those things don't die.
I've also had other vehicles that I've used as well, and a scooter that I drive too.
Yeah. Take care of your cars. That would be like one of those.
That's another good fatherly advice. Take care of your cars.
Dude,
okay.
Take care of anything that you own, first off, but your cars, for sure.
I've actually had people, like I've got a pair of Ray-Ban sunglasses I've had for almost 20 years. And people go, oh, those are brand new. I'm like, no, I've had them for 20 years. They're like, there's no way you've had them. I'm like, yeah, I've had them for 20 years. Because when I don't wear them on my face, they go back into the container that they live in.
Nice.
Okay. And there's really no reason why things shouldn't last a long time. The reason they don't is people don't take care of it, right?
Well, sometimes. There's also this
Sometimes,
whole
right?
issue of they don't build it like they used to.
Right. There's that as well.
Like my washing machine is on its third main bearing. It's
Oh wow.
third.
What brand?
Maytag, maybe? I don't know.
Well,
Honestly, I don't
they're no
remember.
longer made in America, the Maytags. So
I can tell you it's not, because there's no American that would go through this kind of effort. It required a sledgehammer. Every time it requires a sledgehammer to get the old bearing out and put the new bearing in. You have to seat it. They say to seat it with a hammer. Son, if you try to do this with a hammer without hearing protection, you are going to go deaf.
yes.
But your arm is going to fatigue and give out on you before you can get that in with a standard 16-inch hammer, or a 16-ounce hammer. We use an 8-pound sledge and it still took 20 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah. I will check and I will put it in our Discord. I don't remember what brand it is. If my brother is here and knows what brand it is, great. The one thing, this is something that I learned recently. I don't know if my dad never told me or if I didn't listen. I'm opting that it's probably going to be option B more than option A. When was the last time you flushed your hot water heater? Because for
Me?
me, it's been over a decade. And that is way too long. So if you don't know the last
Yeah.
time, you folks at home, if you don't know the last time that you flushed your hot water heater, it's overdue. You need to flush your hot water heater and probably change the anode in it. I
I'm
didn't know
thinking
this.
my thermocoupler went out on my hot water heater 6 years ago. So
Mhm.
that's the last time I did mine. Because at that point, I'm like, it's time to do the full maintenance since this is dead. I gotta.
Yep.
And it's funny, it was still under warranty. So I called the manufacturer. They're like, we troubleshot it to the thermocouple. And they're like, okay, you got two options. I'm like, what's the option? Oh, we can send you one. Okay, how long that's going to take? Oh, we'll send it ground. I'm like, it's November. I kind of need my,
So I'm in
it's
Florida.
my hot water, right?
It's all
I
the
need
same
hot water,
temperature.
right? So
Yeah.
option two is go to Home Depot and buy a thermocouple, take a picture of the receipt, email that to us, and we'll give you the that amount.
Going home.
Like, okay. So I did that, had it fixed that afternoon, flushed it, did all the maintenance at that point. And yeah, so 6 years ago, it's going to need it here soon.
Yeah. Mine, I don't think
And
it was ever done. We bought this house in like 2011, 2012. The house was built in 2008. The hot water heater is older than the house, so just let that one sink in
ooh,
for a little
yeah,
bit. Um, I don't know if it's ever been done, and I have the further problem of I'm on a well that has a fair bit of calcium in it. So I went to
you're
drain
going
it,
to have some buildup in there, yeah.
dude. I went so also the valve on the top of it,
Shot
little
the pressure
risky.
relief valve, yeah.
No. The water shot, because you have to shut off the
Okay,
water to
right,
it.
right.
Um, it's a little shot. You try to turn it, starts to leak. I'm like, okay, no, I will just shut off water to my whole house. That's a lot
Right.
easier. Um, and so, I shut off water in the house, drain the house, get ready, put the hose on it, open the valve. Nothing. I take off the hose. I look in. I can see all the white that is totally covering the spigot. I'm like, oh, this is gonna suck.
Oh my
So I'm like,
goodness.
all right, forget it. I'm gonna put the house back on water. I will deal with this. Is a future grant problem. I'm not doing this. Not gonna bother doing this. It's a future grant problem. So there does become a point where a new hot water heater is like $1,000. I don't know if it's worth it yet.
Funny, you say that. When I first moved to the Portland, Oregon area, I was living with my sister for about a year before I got settled.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that before I made the move. She was like, yeah. And I paid her rent and all that. But I bought her a hot water heater, a new hot water heater before I left her house as a thank you for living there. And she was just like, why are you doing that? I'm like, well, you had a 30-gallon tank. That was way too small for both of us, number one. And it sucked. It didn't heat the water up well enough. I said, plus it was, on its last leg. So I got you a 40-gallon tank and someone's going to come out and install it. She goes, really? I'm like, yeah, I got it all set. I said, it's already downstairs. I moved it downstairs myself from, into your basement. And then she was like, I can't believe you just bought me a hot water heater. I'm like, well, goes back to being a good person, I guess, right? That was my way of saying thank you for letting me stay. Even though I paid her rent, paid my own way while I was there, I had to do something extra because number one, she's my sister. She didn't have to do this.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's the right thing to do. When people take care of you, you take care of them.
Amen to that, dude. You're a good man. You are.
I just try to live my life as like, okay, how do I want to be treated? Let's treat people that way, and hopefully people will treat you back the same way.
That's all you
It
can hope
actually
for.
does works most of the time. There are those people out there that no matter how you treat them, they're just
Yeah.
going to be assholes. And you
Yep.
know what? They have every right to be an asshole. I just don't want them around me.
That's fair. That is fair. I think that we rang our resident AC tech. Duff is here saying heat pump hot water heater sound promising. Plus, it can help cool the house. I have had this idea for a long time since I'm in Florida. Okay, it is. I'll give it to you in both. It is 91 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius outside. It has been raining all day for the past few days. Right, literally south of Florida is like underwater. He says he's a commercial roofer. It's close enough, Duff. They're up there too. It's fine. Um, and if I could heat up my hot water heater or heat up my hot water with the same thing that cools my house down, sign me the frig up. Like,
Oh yeah.
there are companies right now that are selling these sprayer kits that go on the outside of your AC systems that will just mist water into the radiators for your heat exchanger. I'm like, great. So Subaru finally found a way to make it into the daily life because most Subarus have a button to spray water onto the intercooler. And the trick is you always replace with alcohol because it's way better at cooling things down. But I ran the numbers. Not only is it going to ruin your heat pump faster, like it's going to ruin the heat exchanger faster because most of them are going to start galvanically corroding faster.
Hmm.
Um, if you don't have a well like I do, you're going to pay more in water than the savings of energy that it's going to do for you. I ran the damn numbers. I'm like,
Wow.
it's a cool idea in theory because like it should work.
But
But
you're spending more than you're getting out, right?
right, if
You're
you
putting
have a
more
well,
energy into it than you're getting out of it.
like
That's a losing scenario every time.
for me, I just paid the electricity to pump the water out of the ground. It could be something that makes sense, but if you're on a well, you have to worry about it going dry.
Right.
If your well goes dry, that's like a $10,000 problem plus,
Right. You
right?
don't want to induce another issue, right?
No. My well's like 380 something feet down. Like it's non-trivial to get all that taken care of. So,
Well, also in Florida, you're dealing with not just you're on a well, but there's groundwater intrusion happening. So you can't go down too far because then you're going to be pulling up salt water.
yeah. Well, I'm far enough inland and we're also high. My house is like the fifth or sixth highest point in the state. We're
Okay, so
190.
you're not as bad as say down in Clearwater area where
Oh yeah, no, no.
you drill down 50 feet, you're hitting salt water.
Yeah, I'm as the crow flies 20 miles from the coast, probably
Okay,
something
yeah,
like that.
you're okay for now.
Yeah, no, it's and because we're so high up, that's not much of an issue. Quite frankly, the issue that we have is we're on the same part of the aquifer as the Zephyr Hills bottling company.
Ah,
So
they
when you
take all
go
the
buy
water then,
Zephyr
yeah.
Hills water, it also comes from Zephyr Hills, Florida, which is about 15 minutes away. And we have to be careful that they don't overpump the aquifer area because that can dry up.
Hmm.
That and wildlife poisoning it, but that's a whole different Florida man problem. But yeah, like David Connor Shivers like love me swamp coolers. Buddy, swamp coolers don't work here. Like I
It's
have a
too
swamp
hot.
cooler in my garage. It's
The,
so
the
humid that they
Yeah, the
don't
humidity's
work.
too high. Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't do anything.
Like what I was
That's the
so
same way when I lived in Georgia. I had a swamp cooler. Like, that's a waste of money because it's doing nothing. It's too hot, too humid.
the only way that swamp cooler ever worked, like when I was using it before I finally broke down and took Patreon money and put it toward buying buying a real dual hose AC, was I had to put a block of ice into it so the water was cold. So it was blowing cold water
Right.
air on me. Uh yeah, that one's always a weird one. Um Humidity is a little bit different because you're in the Pacific Northwest, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
See that table back there?
A little Pokeball table.
Yeah. It's one of my
Nice.
and the square table next to it. I'm gonna grab that real quick.
Wait,
Hold
how
on.
big is that Pokeball? Oh, of course he can't hear me. Uh, I asked right after he took it off. The swear jar.
The swear jar is pretty big. Even got a slot to put money in.
I'm gonna ask if those are all printed, but I know he can't hear me. That is
So this
super
is a
cool.
design. I took the
Is
what's
that
his name?
printed?
That's a 3D printed IKEA shaped table.
Nice.
I took a Triple G Workshops IKEA table that he made, and I made it thinner because it doesn't need to be as thick as an IKEA table because that's press board and whatnot.
Right.
And the design is roughly the same, but I changed the legs to have a an arch, so it's more stable.
Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
and then all the top pieces are printed face down on the bamboo, so it's multicolor printing, and they're inlaid into the top. And I haven't published that yet because I've been busy with work. And there's a few more refinements, like the corners are square, and it's a kid table, so I got to round them out.
Even for the adults, okay.
A kid's gonna fall and crack his head and hit his head perfect on that corner, right? And then
Every
blood's
time.
gonna go, because that happens when kids play. Because that happened to me when I was a kid.
I got the scars.
Happened to my brother actually. He caused it. He caused the issue with my head in the bedroom. So a week later at the bus stop, I got him back with a big piece of concrete.
Oh God.
Yeah, he's at the bus stop hanging out. We're like 8, 10, something like that.
You really were a menace when you were a kid.
I'm still mad about him busting my head open, right? So I'm looking around. I'm like, I'm gonna get him. And there's this big chunk of asphalt like this big. So I just picked it up and went right on the back of his head and just busted his head right open right there in the bus stop. And of course, got in trouble for that because
you think
he didn't do. He's got this 3-inch scar in the back of his head from that. It's funny.
Jeez. Liz said it is full today, and that I can tell you that she said that, and that your swear jar is filled daily.
I got to put like a 20 in there at least.
I say, what is the normal? What is the normal rate for the swear jar?
It's probably about $10 a day.
No, well, so what is it? $1 per swear?
$1 per swear.
$1 per swear,
and it's not like shit doesn't count. It's like real swear words like F-bombs and like about 2 months ago, I was in a meeting and I forgot to mute my headset, and I was working on something else because that's what we do in IT. We're in a meeting, but we're still working on the back end stuff, trying to figure out shit. And I'm like, oh, fuck, right in the meeting, right? I'm like, and everybody goes quiet. I'm like, look, I'm like, oh, shit, I'm not muted. Yeah. I'm like, I'm sorry, everybody. I'm working on a server and I thought I was muted. I just kind of just owned it right there, right?
Yep.
And I also have to add, I haven't done this in 20 years. It's been 20 years since I dropped an F-bomb in a meeting. And then I told them the story of that meeting, and everybody lost it for 5. They were just laughing. And they were like, okay, what were we talking about?
That's a good way to make it happen. All right, so I'm going to put a challenge out to people. A little late to put the challenge out now, but if you can go through this episode and find every single time that Daddy Wazzy or I cursed, and I just shits are included as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, we'll include all the swear words here. Yep.
I'm gonna donate $1, maybe $10, depends on how high the number is. I'm gonna donate some money to the Sanjay Mortimer Foundation for every time that we've sworn.
And I will match I will match Grant's donation.
There you go.
$1 for $1.
This is how we can make our potty mouths actually do good in the industry.
Instead of going in the jar, it's going to Sanjay Mortimer Foundation instead.
Somebody else has to go through and listen to the 2-hour stream.
Yeah, we got to get a tally. Nope.
So if you want, retweet, tag us both, and say whoever wants to listen and find the number, we're going to make a donation and we'll publicly show you that we made the donation.
Yep.
So
absolutely. That sounds fun.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds fucking fun to me, right?
Fucking A.
Do we get to be Mark Cuban on this one?
Might as well. Fuck it. I just had my yearly review and it went really fucking well. They love me at fucking work. They were like, you just do your fucking shit and we'll be happy.
Hell yeah. Or shit yeah. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Fuck yeah.
Exactly. But that is it, guys. Thank Chris, Daddy Wazzy, thank you so much. This has been awesome. Thank you for doing this, man.
Thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
I always love having new people on the stream. So it was great meeting you at Rocky Mountain.
Likewise.
And if you are a channel member supporter somehow, or anyone is, go find the Positron 3D interview, the 360 of it, because that's when I met Chris for the first time. Mm-hmm. And there is audio of the whole thing with 360 footage attached to it. Chris, I'll send it to you if I haven't already.
Perfect. Thanks.
So you can have that as well. So, yeah. Thank you again, sir. But that is it.
Thanks everybody for hanging out too. I appreciate everybody joining us this Sunday.
Do you know my sign off?
I do not.
Okay, that's all good.
I should know it.
No, nobody ever does. It's fine. But that is it, everyone. This has been episode 100. What episode is this? 191, right? Yeah, 191 of the Making Awesome podcast. Happy Father's Day to the past, present, and future dads out there. Don't be a fucking deadbeat. That is all we have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Let us know the number down below. See you later.